Yep, everything should be okay now.
Okay, so welcome guys to the next Wasabi Wallet research experience. This is number 23, and today we're talking about how to get WabiSabi, Coinjoin, Magic into other Bitcoin software wallets, other than just Wasabi Wallet. I'm curious because I think that's a very important topic to delve down to, and we'll have a couple nice guests joining us today, and including MrKukks. So maybe, Andrew, could you quickly say hello and especially kind of introduce your work at BTC Pay, specifically the plugin system, as I think that will be valuable for the future conversation.
Yeah, sure, Max. So hi, guys. So my name is Andrew. You can call me Cooks, at least on Twitter or wherever you see me. I work full-time on BTC Pay, and one of the latest features that we've been working on is a plugin system. We're kind of trying to market it as a the fancy term seems to be that's sticking the most is the WordPress of Bitcoin, although that's a bit less misleading. It's not misleading, but it's a big broad term.
Is that a compliment or an insult?
I'm not sure. I think it's like a double-edged sword, right? So WordPress is like everybody builds on WordPress, but at the same time, WordPress kind of sucks when you really get into it. So I'm hoping we don't end up in that situation. Yeah, so we're trying to take it super slow with how we flesh it out, just trying to make sure that it comes out right, and that we expose just enough to be able to expand on it, and not too much that everything gets crazy and nothing works anymore. So we kind of already have there's two kinds of plugins in BTC Pay, actually three if you really want to look at it that way. One of them is the Docker plugins that we kind of tell people to just integrate their services in there. That's basically like people adding Electrum server to their BTC Pay install. Then you've got the integrations, so plugins like WordPress integrations that's just completely external of BTC Pay. It's just something that you have to code for specific platforms like on WordPress. So that's PHP, other stuff. And then there's the new version, the new kind of plugins, which is C# plugins directly inside the BTC Pay code base. Where basically we expose a few interfaces and then people implement them and they upload the DLLs and we load these contracts inside BTC Pay, and they can extend the UI, they can run background services and all sorts of crazy stuff. I don't know if that's a good enough intro. I could probably do a deeper dive, but
yeah, I'm maybe a bit curious on how deep the plugin system will go. Like, how far can we manipulate BTC Pay as a plugin developer?
So one thing we're trying to do is make it pretty extensive. So right now it's quite basic in that we expose a few interfaces, which is one of them is like a UI extension interface where we have these little pieces of markers across the UI, and you as a plugin developer can just say, oh, I want to place this HTML partial view in this part of the UI, and then you can just add stuff to it. So one usage of that is basically just putting like an extra navigation item in the side menu or the top navigation, and that links to pages that you create yourself in your plugin. So you can extend the current UI, and then you can add new pages, new routes, all sorts of stuff like that. One thing we're doing with that is basically, let's see, what is there? I've been working on just a small like demo with the Liquid integration. So the first thing I did was basically allow a way to add Liquid assets so that they can just add, so that you don't have to hard code Liquid assets inside BTC Pay like it is currently. Right now, you have to do a pull request to the main code base. You set the asset ID and all that stuff in the code base, and we merge it, and then you have to wait for a release. With the Liquid plugin, you'll be able to just have a UI that's defined in the plugin, and on startup, on the application startup, it will just load the assets you saved in there. So that's one thing. So that basically adds configuration, background services at startup, and also UI, additional UI, and extending the current UI in that it shows like a new navigation item in the server. So it can get pretty extensive. You can build quite a lot. So that's one of the first demo plugins. We're also trying to move existing features into plugins so that the code base becomes a bit more lean. Since we've been building a lot of stuff over the years, and at some point you have to say, okay, maybe we took this too far with feature sets. We should try and be a bit more gentle with what goes in there by default. So one thing we're looking at is basically, one thing I've been playing with is moving the Shopify integration into a plugin and making that section of the UI also extendable so that people can build their own deeper integrations with other platforms in a similar way. I already have a few of those planned out. What else is there?
But so, for example, there's no hindrance in having a plugin that, for example, signs Bitcoin transactions in a custom way.
It all depends on how much we expose in the interfaces. I mean, you can build out an entire wallet interface if you wanted to, so that you can do it exactly the way you want it to. Because right now the wallet send page in BTC Pay is it's like defined as this. There's no extension points in that. There's no way to modify the flow in that in a specific way, at least. Maybe in the future would be possible, but one way to get around that, if you have a very specific flow, such as using an external wallet flow, would be to either build an entire UI and just either you could probably like replace the wallet send link with the new one and make that show instead. So there is no hard limit. The only limit that there is making sure that the current code base is extendable to the means that you want it to be. And I mean, we're not really saying that we're gonna have main blockages in terms of what you want to extend. We'll see as time goes. If there's feedback to add an extra thing in a specific section in the UI, we'll probably do it. Yeah, it's still very early, is what I'm saying. So we can really just play around and see what would work best in a way that's flexible for everyone.
Yeah, that's super fascinating. So thanks for the UI explanations, and it seems quite nice. But one other use case that I think is more of a background feature, kind of that as soon as coins are received, the Wasabi daemon in the plugin kind of starts coin joining it directly. Is that kind of more advanced daemon functionality doable via a plugin?
Okay, so that depends in how you want to integrate. So there's two things to it. You can either do it as a background service inside BTC Pay. So we have a dependency injection container that's just a .NET Core one, where we throw in all our services in there. So you can easily just add another hosted service in there if that's how you wanted to do it. Or we also have an event aggregator, or I think you might call it a mediator or pattern kind of system, which we have events that go into it already when the coin is received, when the payment is received, when an invoice status changes, all that stuff, which could trigger something else. For example, we also have webhooks in there, so when a payment is received on a wallet, it can trigger something external of BTC Pay. So it all depends as well how you would integrate WabiSabi. If it would be built inside, if we would be able to import some libraries and loading them inside the BTC Pay process, or if you would have an external daemon and we would be pinging it and doing the coin mixes through that.
Wait. We could do libraries, and that would be a NuGet package would be good for BTC Pay. Yeah,
that could be pretty cool. I think we could do it that way. If if you had, for example, a package where basically you have all the base functionality you need to trigger a Coinjoin, not trigger, actually, we could just induce the Coinjoin client library inside BTC Pay. That will probably be the best way to do it, because when you run, I think currently you have the RPC that you have to call and operate it separately. If it's built into the process of BTC Pay, that would be pretty crazy. Like you can do like the wallet send page, we could probably either wrap it inside, wrap the functionality around your Coinjoin mechanism that's going to happen, where you'll be able to do a payment from a Coinjoin. That would be pretty cool. But anyway, in terms of technicals, if you have a library that we can run as a background service inside the code base of BTC Pay, that would be perfect.
So I explored. I actually asked Zaxonet to explore this to me, and he said BTC Pay wants to keep things lean, and that's why a NuGet library would not be a good idea.
Yes, but we want to keep things lean. But if it's a plugin, then it doesn't matter, because you can import a NuGet library inside the plugin, which is just loaded on an individual level. So that would become opt-in instead of just having it lying in the background in the BTC Pay code base. One example of so basically our plugin system is just somebody references a few NuGet libraries from BTC Pay. We have, I think it's called BTC Pay server.abstractions. And basically you implement an iBTC Pay server plugin. Inside that, there is a method, which is like, I think it's called configure, where you can just add stuff to the dependency injection container. And you're free to do whatever you want at that point. It's like you can add UI pages, you can add hosted services running throughout the entire lifetime of BTC Pay. You can listen to events, internal events that happen in BTC Pay that you would not be able to do through webhooks inside through the BTC Pay's API. So you can go wild with that. And the best part about it is that the code would not live inside the code base of BTC Pay. It would just be a plugin that somebody just uploads inside BTC Pay, and it runs on their server only.
Yuval, Lucas, do you have any ideas on implementation?
The way we've been writing it should be amenable to reuse in that way. I think it boils down to like how deeply can you integrate in a way that satisfies the constraints. So for example, if the BTC Pay code makes assumptions about like what kind of inputs you can include, and the coordinator is going to reject that later on because, I don't know, we don't support BIP-68 for starters, or only pay-to-witness pub key hash or something. Like those arbitrary constraints are probably going to be the main source of friction. Like how do you make sure that you can actually drop in something that's strictly a subset of the functionality that's already available internally? But as long as that is not insurmountable, I think it should just work. Like it's just a matter of wrapping the internal like WabiSabi library implementation, making sure it's public, of course, first, and making use of that in the hypothetical plugin.
Yeah, that would be nice, because any constraints in the software can be done on your end. So when you wrap your WabiSabi NuGet library inside the plugin code base, you can just like only listen to payments that come in on the store's wallet if it's a specific type of script or something like that. So you can restrict it based to your, customized to your needs. we obviously don't have a lot of stuff exposed inside BTC Pay right now, but it should be quite possible. Like you'll have access to, for example, NB Explorer if you wanted to, and you know the UTXOs available and all that stuff. So you could completely bypass any restrictions inside the BTC Pay UI and build your own wallet send UI if you needed to, or just replace it entirely. It should be quite flexible.
As it's capable of doing like a BIP-174 workflow, that should be more than enough.
Yeah. Which one is that again? BIP? Which one?
The-
What did you say?
PSBT, like, you know, the
Oh yeah, for sure.
machine for the
yeah, we-
constructor and signer roles, that should be compatible.
Yeah, for sure. We already have full PSBT support in there anyway. Like the entire wallet sending system is using PSBTs internally, and we expose them. I think it's like you first go on a send page, and then you can say create a transaction or sign it directly at that point, and it'll just show you a signed PSBT, and then you can say either broadcast it or do a Payjoin or something like that. So it's already in that style. Like even in the Explorer, it exposes everything through PSBTs if you wanted to avoid the wallet send page.
Might it be useful to have output descriptors here, so that, for example, the BTC Pay wallet can just get the exact private key and script to the Wasabi client, which then adds this key to its wallet and signs the Coinjoin?
I didn't understand that. You have output description. You're using output descriptors on your end.
No, not yet. But I'm curious if it would be useful. Basically, then this way, Wasabi can use its own signing magic, right, and does not need to rely on BTC Pay's signing stuff, right? Because there are some nuances in Coinjoin signing.
Yeah, for sure.
So then we can just get the private key from BTC Pay, basically.
Yeah, you can do it. You can, like, the hot wallet system in BTC Pay is the hot wallet system is not even inside on the BTC Pay level. It's on the ANB Explorer level. So you can get the key completely separately of BTC Pay, as long as it's a hot wallet, obviously. Yeah, no, there's no issue there for sure. And in terms of output descriptors, you don't technically need it. Because, well, BTC Pay, so first off, the store setup in BTC Pay, it supports importing an output descriptor with some constraints to it, that it has to be HD, and I forgot what else there is. Basically, can be like a wrapped one or something. Yeah, there is some basic support, but we convert it to our internal format, which is on the MBX level. But it's nothing complicated, so you can quite easily map it to whatever you need.
And then how about having a pay-to-endpoint functionality in this WabiSabi plugin? What do you think?
A pay-to-endpoint. Well, I mean, there's already pay-to-endpoint support in BTC Pay. I'm just curious on. I guess if you wanted to replace the default behavior for pay-to-endpoint, then how we suggest UTXOs and the Payjoin proposal itself, you could just overall just say screw this implementation and just replace it with your own using dependency injection of some sort, with whatever you provide in the plugin. So you could probably just say replace the entire Payjoin receiver endpoint with our own WabiSabi endpoint, if you have something very specific in mind, because I'm not sure if you do. So it's quite flexible. I think everything should be like you can hack your way to any functionality you want, most likely, if you're good enough with mastering the dependency injection container.
Yeah, it would be a replacement of Payjoin, I would guess. It's basically like both sender and receiver provide inputs, but also hundreds of other users provide inputs in the WabiSabi transaction. So,
but it
like-
wouldn't be a BIP-78 one. So is it?
no,
78?
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
I mean, you could.
I
Yeah, go ahead.
have a question for you, Andrew, about the Payjoin implementation, but not the implementation, the trend and the usage. Do you have any numbers that you can share with us about how many, how this feature is being used in the real world by people? The adoption?
Well, I would tell you, but if I could tell you, I think we would have done something wrong because we have no tracking system in there. We have no analytics on anything, so we have no clue how people use BTC Pay.
No, but you provide, probably, I'm not sure, but support, people make questions, so you have some intuition of how this can be used in reality. Because it's like Wasabi, for example. If we never receive any, nobody ask about a feature, nobody have a problem with a feature, probably nobody's using it, right?
Yeah, I would say that questions around Payjoin are quite low. But I also feel like that stems from the lack of motivation from a merchant point of view. Right now, we have the most primitive version of a Payjoin you can do in terms of BIP-78 functionality that we can support. Um, I have worked on some private consulting stuff around BIP-78 where I don't think it's out yet at all, but where I've worked on batch transactions and output substitution and all that stuff. So, and it will be quite more beneficial to a merchant to use these kind of things in the future in terms of
Why isn't the
what?
why isn't the merchant why is so they have to opt into this feature? Why
Yeah,
why isn't it on by default? Is there something wrong with this?
yes. So the main detraction of it in terms of us promoting it is the hot wallet requirement. Obviously, that's like we don't want people to just decidedly create a store, configure a wallet, and just automatically have a hot wallet. That's just too not risky, but it's just people already have always had the option to have a watch only wallet inside BTC Pay and never risk their funds getting stolen. So all of a sudden we're promoting the opposite of that with Payjoin. So for me,
but how about if the user opts into doing a hot wallet, then the default is Payjoin activated?
yeah,
Because
that's a
right now
good.
it's two separate. So.
Yeah, that's a good idea actually. From my end, I think that's a good thing. I do think that I want to, instead of just enabling it by default only, I also want it to be like incentive based, and that once you start, like if you have, we already have a refund feature inside BTC Pay, and you already have merchants sending transactions from inside BTC Pay's wallet. So the idea is that we grab those and we start batching them inside the Payjoins so that they save on fees. And then after that as well, there's also the parts where you can eventually we want to have a way to support multiple wallet script types. So you'd have SegWit and P2SH on top of that, two separate wallets with generating two addresses. So the default address would be P2SH based, and if they do a Payjoin, it would automatically upgrade and substitute the address with the SegWit one. That would also save on fees. What else is there? Also, basically just substituting outputs. Let's see, how was it? Basically, if a Payjoin happens and you've got the right circumstances, you can just redirect the payment being done to pending transfer that you wanted to do. So it becomes kind of like a three-party Coinjoin where you as a merchant is not even involved in the transaction because you just use inputs from the person sending you money. There's a lot of stuff that I wish would be included, obviously, but it just takes a lot of time and effort. We'll get to it eventually, but things take forever.
Lovely. May I ask one more thing? That's my last question regarding this topic, which is again a practical one.
Sure.
Another question I had, and I did not investigate it, but I hope you guys did that. BIP-21 URLs, Payjoin URLs are just an extension of BIP-21 URLs. So now the question arises that, wallets, those are compatible with BIP-21 URLs. How do they behave when they see a Payjoin URL? Do they throw an exception? Do they just dismiss the Payjoin part of the URL? Or did anyone here try to investigate that?
Yeah, I've checked a few wallets and a few code bases around it. For the most part, I would say I forgot the actual numbers, but I would easily say 90% of all wallets would just, if they don't support Payjoin, they would just ignore it. I've seen some cases where it crashed because it expected the string, and then basically if you add an ampersand to it, it would just not recognize it and crash. But that's like a deeper issue as well. Basically, it was expecting that the BIP-21 URL was just Bitcoin : address and then the amount and nothing else. Like if you even added a label, it would crash. So that was even a deeper bug on their end. But in most cases, there was no issue.
Yep, that's how I remember it too. All these fields are optional. The wallet doesn't understand it. They should just be skipped.
Yeah, exactly. That's one of the main things that I liked about BIP-79. So BIP-21 is nice and simple, at least, so people know what the hell it is, and when they look at it, it's not too scary. I know that who was it? I think it was Waxwing that had it on. He had the gist with and a small discussion about a format for join market before BIP-79. I don't even remember if it was before or after BIP-79 was announced, where they would have the three, I think it was address, endpoint, and amount with commas separated, but that would not have been nice to share around either. Even just for copy pasting or trying to highlight the text with a double click or something, that would have failed. At least with BIP-21, it's nice and easy. You can see that it's all one long string, and people are familiar with the string as well, with the string format. And also with BIP-21, it allows you to just expand it even more if you wanted to. So if you wanted to change communication for BIP for the Payjoin, so from HTTP endpoint, it would just be, I don't know, you'd say PJ dash communications or something, and then you'd say equals QR or something, or NFC or Bluetooth, and then you just scan the network, or you make your phone emit and NFC data, and then you just tap it with another phone or something like that. So those stuff is completely possible if you just extend it with minor opt-in layers.
All right, thank you. So there are some other guests in the call too. So Max, would you like to do a transition?
Yes. So of course, Kukks, feel free to stay in if you still want to contribute and hang out. That was super helpful so far though already. So thanks for that.
Yeah, sure.
We're also joined, I think it's BenKaufman and Moritz, both here. And these guys are tinkering on the amazing Specter Wallet, which is kind of a graphical user interface on top of the Bitcoin Core infrastructure. And I think that's a very promising project too. So how are you both doing?
Not too bad. I think Ben is trying 3 times at the same time, listening in, shit posting, and doing the new release. But I wouldn't expect anything else.
That's good multitasking.
Yeah, I'm doing good here.
And drinking a beer.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really great. I was talking to Max last week about what's happening at Wasabi, and it was really interesting what's going on with you guys, and especially like how you're working on the better UX now and the next release and stuff. So very excited about that.
Thanks and welcome, guys.
Thank you.
I'm happy for joining us.
Maybe it's
by the way, can I ask a question for, because now we are here a couple of wallet developers, and I would like to know what do you think is what we need to improve in the standards or collaborations, or what can we do to make the wallets more compatible, if you want, more easy to interoperate, and of course I prefer to know about privacy, but I understand that's probably not the main focus of all the wallets. But just to know about that, what do you think?
I guess it's just a lot of more communication. I think there is not really a very central way to coordinate stuff, to set standards for stuff, for I don't know, for example, backups, stuff like that. So it's kind of very spread around. Which I guess makes sense, but it would be quite easier, I think, if there would be like some more standards, I guess, for that.
I think it's also just a matter of someone picking up the slack and actually doing it. I mean, for example, Andrew Cho with hardware wallet interface, right? That, the concept is obvious, but it just took a while until someone finally did it. But no, pretty much every wallet is compatible with it.
Yeah, also.
So yeah, for example, just to be a bit more concrete, probably in my questions, for example, do you think that if we all implement output descriptors, for example, would that help, or do you think that there is something more important that we can do first? For example, you can say, hey, you Wasabi wallet, I think we think you should do this first. It's perfectly okay to say something like that.
Yeah, so I'm not sure. I think implementing output descriptors would be great for us because we already use them natively. So if other wallets would support that too, then I think that would be a great standard to move to. But no, I don't have anything else like more specific in mind.
Okay, and sorry, and for example, we have been discussing about Payjoin, right? Minutes ago. I don't know if you were here, but well, I'm not sure, but it seems to me probably a Payjoin was invented or designed with the idea of being useful for merchants. I don't know if that is so true for normal users, I mean, if my wallet, because yes, I understand merchants have a server that is running all the time, and it has a web server and all that kind of stuff that makes it ideal for being a Payjoin receiver, right? Probably a mobile wallet is not a good example. But do you think pen-to-endpoint have some future?
So I didn't research about it much, but yeah, I think so. I think again, I'm not for Specter. It's not really a tool for for a lot of use for merchants like BTC Pay server would. But I still think it could be a useful tool for some users.
Do you have it implemented now?
No, not yet. We're looking to have that, but just not enough time again.
I think here comes one of the crooks with Specter specifically is that you focus on multi-signatures, right? And I would guess the vast amount of Bitcoin hold in Specter is protected by multisig, that's just a guess. And that makes coin joins of any type more complicated, even two-party coin joins like Payjoins. What do you think? Payjoins with multisig, is that even doable?
I really didn't look into that. Probably Stepan, I think, did look into that, but you'd have to ask him. So yeah, I'm really not sure how difficult would that be.
Okay, Andrew.
I do think that, yeah, I do think that Payjoin is possible with multisig, but the issue comes where it's really hard because you have to match basically the sender and the receiver have to have the same script types. So if the sender has multisig and the receiver isn't using multisig and he doesn't have an output substitution location to matching multisig script type, then you'll have a fingerprint on the Payjoin transaction. So that's usually not very effective, and the usage of multisig will obviously. Most merchants probably don't use multisig. And if you have a Payjoin receiver server with a multisig hot wallet setup, that's kind of stupid, I think.
Yeah.
So, but I guess if you wait for Taproot, I guess that would be completely fine for multisig Payjoins somehow. Yeah.
And
But
by
guys,
the way, also, Payjoins with hardware wallet require the non-ownership proof, right? But Stepan figured out. I think the attacker could still steal money even if it's only a two-party Coinjoin, if you cannot prove that the other UTXO is not from this wallet. So I guess the same applies for multi-sig on hardware wallets, or even single-sig hardware wallet Payjoins. It's probably not worth spending time on.
What I would like to know if the market is requesting this kind of features, or if it is just some kind of developers masturbation, that we want to have this complex algorithm. And it's hard to know, right? Because from Wasabi, our focus is precisely to not to know. I mean, we don't want to know. So it's hard, but probably, I don't know if you have more information. Probably you have I don't know. Probably you know more about your users, probably not. But I would like to know if you know something about this.
We have, at least in Specter, we also have no analytics, no data whatsoever. So not really. So just from talking to users, we do have a few users asking about it, but I have no idea if they asking about it because they heard about it and they don't really know what it is, or because they really know what it is and want to use it. So I have no idea.
Yeah, from my end, it's some people ask about it because they see it in the UI, but not a lot of people have an idea of what it does. But the idea of having a Payjoin that's with a payment destination that's backwards compatible. So just the standard BIP-21 is that you can increase adoption without harming any usage. And the idea is eventually it becomes worthwhile to a merchant that's running a 24/7 server. But from what you mentioned as well, like a mobile wallet, it's you can't just you could do it. You could always just spin up a Tor circuit and all that magic. But if you're in close proximity, you can even do it with just QR code scanning and all that stuff, or NFC or some other P2P communication that you do between wallets. And it, from my point of view at least, it's not as complicated as you make it out to be. It's literally like a two process job, right? So you receive a BIP-21, you send a PSBT over there. Okay, maybe it's a bit more steps, but it's you receive a destination to pay. You create a transaction that pays it, send it over, and then you receive a Payjoin transaction that you can or don't want to proceed with. And it's just PSBT parsing and then the business logic on top of that.
Well, I agree that there are a lot of users who just have mobile wallets or desktop wallets that shut down properly. But I think a decent percentage, or at least a decent absolute number of Bitcoin users have their own server or their own Bitcoin full node, probably running 24/7 in the background. So it's still, I think, a decent potential user base that might be well suitable for these Payjoins. And to be honest, I think that's all that we need. Right? We don't need every user to run Payjoin all the time. We just need to have the threat that a small percentage of users run Payjoins to already taint the analysis.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, do we? I mean, what is that small percentage? At 1%, I mean, they are already operating with probabilities, right? And 99% probability is, I think, is as good as any other assumptions they have. So I don't know. We need 10%, 90% probability. Not that good. So maybe we should have more. No?
Yeah, I do think it needs to be more than 1% for sure to even make a dent in anything, even from just their own perception, right, of how these things operate. And also, they wouldn't even figure it out at that point. If you have the specification nailed down well enough that the fingerprinting is not happening, then none of us will know really that there is a 1%, 10% chance of analytics poisoning happening through Payjoin transactions. Yeah, I do think we can. The best way to look at it is just Payjoin on its own is probably not going to do the dent that you want it to, but it was part of a diverse selection of tools that you can use, that as people use collectively in their own little ecosystems, they probably add up enough to make the dent that you wanted to. I just wish we'd be able to see the clusters to actually see how, if they're actually getting poisoned somehow or not on private analytics software, but we'll never know, right? So
it's way too early to write down Payjoins. I mean, but I think the hurdle is for the user adoption is the user experience. I mean,
exactly.
Sure, it's nice to have this on the merchant side, but I don't know what percentage of Bitcoin transactions would be with BIP-21 URLs, but I think it's even smaller than 1%.
You think so? I think BIP-21 is quite used. Like from our end, our QR code is always BIP-21 because it adds the amount to it. We only have a very small percentage of people that use the address directly and the amount separately.
Because your service is for merchants.
Yeah, that's true. It's. I mean,
no, but
you're
I mean,
talking.
he has a good point, right? Wasabi could as well just show a QR code with the BIP-21 URL and Payjoin enabled.
Okay.
I mean,
Yes. Sorry. Yes. You're right. I completely missed that. So it doesn't have to be. Yeah, it can be just a QR code. Or can it? Can it be? Because can other wallets read it even if they are not compatible with Payjoin?
Yes, but they must be compatible with BIP-21 and, well, a QR code reader. But
Yeah,
that should be a good requirement. Do they do that? That's the question, right?
they from all the wallets I've seen so far, they've all supported BIP-21. Obviously, from Wasabi side, you probably would not add an amount. You'd only have the Bitcoin address there, I'm guessing.
Okay, that's very good. Then I withdraw the strength from my opinion, and yeah, I think my argument doesn't hold up that much because there are QR codes. Yeah, sure.
And again, I think it's also a usability thing, right? I think if more wallets, especially Wasabi, would be able to click on a link and then be opened, like the Bitcoin URI is supposed to work. And if you have that UX, I would be sending around these URIs too.
Yeah.
Can I?
Yeah.
Sure, go ahead. I was gonna change topic.
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, Bitcoin, even inside BTC Pay, we actually have some naive implementation for natively opening Bitcoin URIs. Basically, browsers allow you to hook onto URI schemes, and then they will open to a specific URL that you set them to. So going back to the plugin thing, if WabiSabi is running inside the plugin system, we can even divert a URL link to open up, and the wallet sent using WabiSabi to do the Coinjoin to the payment destination through it.
Yeah, that might be kind of another way to connect Wasabi and BTC Pay in a bridge. So you have run Wasabi separately and BTC Pay separately, and you can somehow manage in the GUI of Wasabi the backend server of BTC Pay. Maybe is that what you mean a bit, Andrew?
I was talking more like if you were running WabiSabi embedded inside BTC Pay directly, then you would be able to use the Bitcoin URI functionality directly with WabiSabi as well. Obviously, that's a bit more intricate, I guess, in implementation details.
Okay, what's the next topic, Adam?
Oh, I wanted to ask more. It's if he could talk about the history of Specter rather than Specter, like how did everything? Yeah, like when did you think about it? Why? What's the mission? You know what I mean? Just a history lesson.
Okay, wow, and it's not going to be a big history lesson. It was, well, I started out in 2017 with the idea that there should be better hardware wallets, and I was struggling to find the right technical guide to start it, and it took me like a year. And then we were in Portugal, in Lisbon, at the conference where you announced Wasabi Wallet. And yes, I was sort of confused by you on the stage there with the pullover and stuff, and was just wrapping my mind around what's Coinjoin and what's going on there. And I met Stepan at the party in the evening, and he was like, "Hey, you're a business guy, and what the heck? And you want to do a hardware wallet?" And then, yes, he showed me some prototypes, and I got really excited. And yes, then we partnered together in the company. But yes, and then where we weren't really sure where to start and how to start. So we started working with the Fraunhofer Institute, which is the leading German cybersecurity institute. So like Infineon and Siemens and everybody goes there, and we're discussing some chip designs and had everything really nicely laid out. And then we started talking to VCs and started to figure out that we don't like this whole VC story so much, because they like blockchain and tokens and are not into hardware because hardware doesn't scale, and then also not into open source because then they don't control the IP. So things got, yes, in 2019, in the summer, I really had to realize that, okay, we have some really good prototype and Stepan is doing great work, but the stuff that we want to do, we don't get to finance under the conditions we wanted. And I already invested some money in the company. And then, yes, then we saw HWI, and I just basically asked Stepan, like, okay, when we have a hardware wallet, what's going to be our desktop app? And we couldn't find the desktop app we wanted to use with, a little bit like Cold Card, but we really wanted to have a desktop app with it. And then I was just poking stupid noob questions into Stepan and was figuring out with him, okay, you can basically do a lot with almost everything with the Bitcoin Core node. And I always felt like this feeling that people, especially at technical conferences or anywhere else, they go, hey, you have to run your node and you have to use your node and check your UTXOs and stuff. And I always felt bad because I had the computer at home that was Bitcoin Core running, but I wasn't really using it. So, and then Stepan said, yes, I can do a little prototype and wrap this around, and we can make QR code gapped PSBT transactions. And then Keith Mukai, a guy from Chicago, came in and just over a week prototyped Ledger and Trezor support, I think, into it, and KeepKey. And then we could do multisig, and it got really, really interesting. But Stepan is excellent at prototyping, and then really building it out took us then from the, say, autumn, September 2019, really to really launch it was in August last year. And along the way, I was very happy because Kim Neunert was joining us first, and then also Ben came around after Advancing Bitcoin in London in March 2020, and was a tremendous help and high energy, great feature ideas, implementing a lot. And so we have a really nice team now with Stepan, which is really a great technical guy and brainy. And then the two other guys also very smart. And so I'm like the yeah, I like to support what we're doing. So at the moment, the business model, what we are doing is really we're building Specter Desktop, and we have like an enterprise side where companies come to us, like a custodian or a Bitcoin development company or specific enterprises who want hardware or firmware solutions, and we build that for it, and this pays the bills. It's not too much, and yes, so we are using the enterprise side to pay the bills and try to make Specter Desktop better. And of course, the project will be like, let's see how this works with this enterprise side business model, and I'm ready to keep supporting it. We're getting some interest from VCs now, but I don't know if this is really the best way forward. And then because I think when you once start the VC route and they want to push you into the next series A, B, C, D, and then you have to offer an exit or something. So I don't know if it's really well aligned to become a VC finance project. And so I'm a bit puzzled with that. Maybe you have thoughts on that. But this is where we stand. So I think Ben is currently working on a packaged core node into Specter so that you can have a one-click install on a pruned node, and also like Tor integration. So, and I think then we are quite ready in the feature set. And of course, we're looking for business models also in Specter Desktop, where we could integrate, let's say, one instance was I was discussing with Max, like an API for Coinjoin, Wasabi Coinjoin, where we would direct our users into your Coinjoin, or service integrations with collaborative custody, or something like peer-to-peer exchange. So this is something we think about, but it's still quite early. Yeah, so that's the story.
Nice. I would have like more, maybe Ben can answer that too, but like, how would you like to get Wasabi or WabiSabi implemented? Because you don't really have a plugin system like BTC Pay. So what technical approach would you guys think of? What would you like?
Yeah, so we are trying to work on the plugin system actually. So it's mostly Kim from our team that is working on that. So yeah, we'll probably try to go with that approach, but it's still underworked. So
Okay, cool. Didn't know that. But like, what stuff would you need from like the Wasabi client that you could use?
So I'm not really sure. I guess basically just an RPC server with all the functionality would suffice probably.
But then in a way that the RPC server manages the wallet that you have in Bitcoin Core.
Sorry?
I mean, you do all the signing and stuff with Bitcoin Core, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So that means if you would have some Wasabi RPC server, who would do the signing? Would it be the Wasabi RPC server that signs, or the Bitcoin Core node?
I guess it depends. So whatever is needed. If it's needed to be through Wasabi, then Wasabi. I think we can work through that.
By the way, just for Max, you know, Max, we have to implement an external signer because if you want to sign your Coinjoin with your hardware wallet, for example, automatically, let's say, Wasabi has to allow that. So if you want, for example, that Bitcoin Core sign a transaction for you, you just have to create the external signer. It's a technical detail, but just to...
Yeah, that's a good point.
It's not
But just as a quick note, then Bitcoin Core also needs to understand the non-ownership proofs, right? Because otherwise external signing is not secure.
No, the signer. You don't need to. Well, I think it probably is not for this meeting, but I think it's not a problem.
No, what I want to come out with this question is, if we want to get Wasabi in Specter Wallet, how much do we actually need to contribute to Bitcoin Core? Just because Specter Wallet uses Bitcoin Core a lot.
Yeah, I'm really not sure, to be honest. So I didn't really look into how Wasabi would work. So I can't really give an answer right now.
Yeah, I think no one can.
I think
because we don't even know.
No, yes, probably I'm wrong, but I think the only thing that you really need is the Wasabi to know the XPub key, right? And oh no, sorry, because it well, probably an XPub key that is known by Bitcoin Core and implement an external signer. The only thing I'm not 100% sure how is to create all the addresses, right? Well, probably that's not a problem either. It is possible. Yes, it is possible. It's just we have to think a bit, but it's not a problem, I'm sure. Anyway, I would like to know what is the Specter team working on now, and I don't know if that is possible to know, or if the surprise for their users, but what are you doing?
Yeah, so right now we just finished with this addition, as Maurice mentioned, of Bitcoin Core and Tor into Specter. So basically just packaging them so it's basically instant setup. We still have some factoring to do right now, so we're just cleaning up some stuff we were delaying for a bit. After that, we're looking on stuff like Liquid, but we still don't know for sure what we're going to do next. So kind of going with it.
Yeah, I think also with the release of the package node, we will do some refactoring and cleaning up the whole code base. So this was important to Kim and Stepan, and I hope also to Ben, because Ben is already like, he loves new features, let's say so. But but we are quite there with the features, I guess. And yes, and then it's a kind of a strategic decision what we want to do first, like focus on integrations or add new Bitcoin features like Lightning or Liquid. I think Liquid is quite interesting. I don't know about you guys. Is this something where Wasabi is also thinking about, or are you very focused on just pure Bitcoin on-chain solutions?
It would actually be cool to get a confidential transaction Coinjoin implementation running on Liquid. I should have counted the number of times that we said during the Wasabi research clubs, like, let's just use Monero with CT and ring signature. That makes everything easier. No, but
yeah, the Liquid Coinjoin theme, I think Matt Odell tweeted about it. I mean, we discussed it already, like maybe half a year ago. It's another possibility that we could do also to complement like the whole privacy ecosystem a bit more. Yes, but it's quite a little bit away. There's like the Liquid stuff is interesting, but there has to be some cleaning up and iterations and hardware support, and it's not quite there yet for that.
Yeah, but to give a quick summary on second layer protocols in Wasabi, I think first is priority to figure out all the mistakes of the first layer, and that's already a shit ton of work. And then, I mean, everyone has to implement Lightning probably. So sooner or later it will come, but we want to implement Lightning Network right, and like with all the privacy focuses that we have on chain so far, and that's just impossible nowadays.
Yeah.
Yes, and after that we have to find all the problems in second layer, because Lightning is probably too far of what it was promised, right? There are a lot of details that can compromise the privacy of the transactions, and yes, we are not close to fix that. In fact, we didn't start it yet.
Yeah, tricky.
Yeah, that's a good point. We didn't even start it yet.
It's very tempting to look at different stuff and then do this and that, and I think this was something maybe was in the first year a little bit like tricky for us as a team to figure out, because we were playing with a Lightning app and we were looking into the hardware stuff really deep and spent quite some money on time on the whole chip design and stuff, and then we sort of said, okay, let's also with the hardware, like, okay, they don't want to finance us. Okay. I think we had one meeting with an investor who wanted to buy us, and Stepan, we were a little tipsy, let's say a little drunk, and Stepan got angry and he got bullish, and when Stepan, I don't know what he does, but he hacked me sort of, and then we were like, yeah, let's do this. And I was like, I put in another 50K or 100K, and let's do it, the whole hardware thing, do it yourself. And so this is how Specter DIY then sort of was born. And now we're doing quite well. We have the smart card support and stuff. So, and we don't want to let go of that. I think it's a really nice hardware wallet. We get really, really good feedback. So like everybody who gets it and buys it and uses it says it's his favorite hardware wallet because of the big screen, about the Bitcoin only focus, about all the power features, and it's still quite simple. So, and then yes, this was something where we really were very stubborn, but with the Specter desktop thing, we are a little bit opportunistic and see, okay, this really works. And it's so it's tricky not to get sidetracked because there's so much stuff going on in Bitcoin, and you really have to find your niche and then really refine your art in there and make it the best possible solution. So it's tricky.
Mm-hmm. It's actually
and the new users are flooding in and using Coinbase.
Yes. I mean, I don't know what we can do about this. It's just, I mean, I was too using Bitcoin at the beginning, and it's just, I don't know, it's just impossible, I think, because they have this huge market, and we have the same here in Austria with Bitpanda. Bitpanda is a big exchange here, and they have all the shit coins, they have all the VC money from Vala Ventures or whatever. They're even doing radio spots here in Austria. So my mom calls me, say like, hey, this Bitcoin exchange does, and they're in every newspaper because they are like the big Austrian unicorn now. So it's a shit show on another level, and it's, I don't know, it's really strange. And we're hoping that some Bitcoin only services will bootstrap. Maybe a European version of Swan Bitcoin is coming, or something in Germany or in Austria. So
Relay.
Yeah, Relay is quite nice but expensive, and they have the problem that they're doing everything on chain. So I think 2 weeks ago, and they had to shut down the service for a couple of days because the exchange, the backend exchange they're working with, wasn't supporting the high fees. So there was some kind of argument about the fees there. And yes, so I mean the pressure on Liquid and Lightning to come will be strong in 6 months. Holy moly.
Yeah, I mean, Liquid is kind of an easy solution to the fee pressure, right? Specifically for traders, high frequency transaction makers in general.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I wanted to ask a follow-up question. It's interesting to see your story with the hardware wallet work. Good that you kept it up. Thanks for the investment. Really useful.
This is painful. It was painful, I tell you.
I know. Don't even want to know how many Bitcoins that was.
I won't tell anybody.
No, but what do you think, or what percentage, or roughly, like, what is the demand for the pre-built Specter hardware wallet that you actually sell, compared to people buying the do-it-yourself parts and putting it together themselves?
It's a small tinkerer and maker community, I would say. So we sold about 50, but we wanted to keep the demand really low, because what we want to do is really focus. We don't want to go with Specter hardware wallet. We don't want to go to the mass market, because it's very competitive already outside there. And then if you sell like 500 or 1,000 of these pieces, it's not a good business. You sell one of the devices, you earn €100, and then you have to follow up with all the support, and you have noobs buying it, and noobs don't know about private keys and nothing. So we really want to focus on the advanced Bitcoiners, on the technical Bitcoiners. But we get a fair amount of messages now in the DMs on Telegram and in the chats, or asking, hey, can I buy a Specter Shield? And then I usually put them on the list and let them wait a bit. And if they come back and say, "Oh, I really want to have the Specter Shield now," then we are talking. Otherwise, it's very limited. So I don't know how many Specter DIY or Shield people are out there. Maybe I should ask Seed Signer how many sold in US, but it wouldn't be more than 100 or 200 people, I would say, something like this.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, I bet that scaling hardware production is a pain in the ass.
Yeah, I mean, you have to basically, you need some good operating business or get some cash flows or whatever, or have a big VC investment, but then you don't really have time. So I believe like we could not have developed Specter hardware and the Specter desktop as it is today if we had VC money. And with VC money, I think they want to have, after 3 months, they want to see sort of a crazy growth charts of whatever you're doing. And go and growth. So I mean, it took us sort of 12 months to really figure out what our niche is and what we want to do, and then it took another sort of 12 months go to market to really to really have the product on the market. And now we have a good product market fit, I would say, but we couldn't do that with VC money. And I had also my learnings coming from the business side. You very like the people always tell you, yes, VC money, and you think that's the normal way, and then you learn about bootstrapping the whole thing. And I mean, there is a place for VC money, maybe later or whatever, or we can revisit the topic. But at the moment, I'm quite happy with. It was quite painful, but it was it's great, and it's great to be on such a team and make a sort of a contribution to Bitcoin. Yeah.
I would have one more question leading to a bit of a different topic. Now that Yuval especially is in here, he can maybe answer the technical sides of this topic. But first, Moritz, could you maybe share some of your kind of feature requests for a coordinator fee revenue sharing model? Because it's something we talked about. I know it's something you're interested in.
Yeah, I saw the meme today, and with the Suez Canal, and you were sort of you had an accident in the Suez Canal with feature requests. So I don't want to too much put this out there, but I just want to say, like, we would be really happy and really excited if there would be an API for your Coinjoin implementation, your upcoming, and because we can direct our users to use this Coinjoin. We can add a Coinjoin wallet, which would use your backend in the end. So it would be really exciting to have sort of an integration there with your Coinjoin coordinator.
Yeah, and like, what are some of the like specifically on that fee sharing model? Like, how are you envisioning it? Because I think your kind of use case on how you would use that thing would help us in designing it properly.
One more thing. Sorry, I didn't get that.
Like, can you go a bit more into details with like what type of revenue sharing, what different models you were thinking, just so that we get a use case and can consider that in designing it.
On the technical end, I don't know, Ben. Maybe you know how we looking at this with the other service implementations, but we would need some kind of a way to have a meter, how much volume or which kind of volume we're bringing to we're bringing to the Coinjoin coordinator. But we, of course, we don't want to, like, the core features of Specter is really your node, your verification, your wallet infrastructure and everything. So on your infrastructure, which is your privacy, and then your keys, your coins, and all that interoperable and quite user friendly. So we cannot damage the privacy of our users there. So it would be like we need to secure like a proxy server going through one of our through a server that we operate. So I'm not technical enough to expand on that too much, I guess. Ben, maybe you know. Ben is out, I guess.
Yeah, maybe Yuval can go a bit more into the details of how WabiSabi might fix that.
I don't have any like concrete spec or anything, but I mean, in the way that we model like Bitcoin amounts, we're also modeling weight units right now in order to make sure that like the transaction ends up being standard. We could basically like figure out some way of having additional ways of quote spending credentials on like specific things that are not outputs. Like you register something that's a pseudo output essentially, and instead of the server appending that to the transaction, it keeps some sort of auditable account of what you're spending this on, right? Is it a donation to some service? Is it a bounty for a bug that the coordinator is involved in, or something like that? And I suppose that different wallets could just come with these, configured to by default, donate some share of excess, like the suppressed change, or maybe some percentage of fee would go towards a specific, entity. But ultimately, like at the point where you hand off the money to the coordinator, like that's kind of a big trust assumption. So I think the coordinators need to, or the coordinators and the entities receiving the money need to be like trusted to some extent. The advantage is if you can prove that payments were made, like you could then correlate that to this like audit log and say like here's a receipt. The money that you asked to go to like this Bitcoin address or something eventually did make it to there.
Okay.
So this is maybe somewhat of an affiliation system, right? Where different people or projects can get an affiliation code. Might even be something humanly readable, right? And then the user can put that into the wallet either himself, or it's shipped by default in that integration. So and the user like registers that affiliation code. Just
something like that. And I mean, there needs to be careful consideration of things like fingerprinting through timing attacks. Like if you see that a certain UTXO cluster happens to be, or a suspected cluster happens to be used around a time where Coinjoin transactions auditably donate money to WikiLeaks or something, there's potential circumstantial evidence that might not even be true, but might, be used in a sort of like surveillance capitalism type model of doing business. So, like you need to consider those things as well.
Yeah, if the payouts are to be verifiable and transparent.
I think an initial proof of concept would probably be something like, and this is way down the line, but something like vote on your, Wasabi feature. And if we make sure to do that in a way that's privacy preserving, then it's probably going to be easier to generalize to, add another layer of auditability on top of that, which is now involving like multiple entities being paid by the same coordinator, and maybe like multiple coordinators trusting each other to, keep honest accounts.
Okay.
That's interesting. I also wonder about the legal consequences of this, but I actually don't think that affiliation payouts are of any legal concern. I mean, sure, you probably have to like make some smart accounting for it or to get it above board, but it seems this is just a standard business practice.
Yeah, the legal stuff is a little bit tricky. We would have to check that. I mean, like, yeah. But as we don't operate the coordinator ourselves, and we are just offering like a service integration, so it's officially not our client to say so. But there is no client, and it's tricky. It's tricky. We would have to discuss with maybe some legal guys there.
Yeah, but this is maybe one noteworthy feature request that I hear from you, like to not need or to not carry the legal responsibility of running a coordinator and earning revenue from that. Yeah, so this is something that has to be considered too. right? That this is legally solid, and especially that there's no legal burden on the kind of affiliation users.
Yeah.
I mean, everything is legally solid that is non-custodial in any jurisdiction right now.
Yeah, but you could argue that this affiliation payout is getting custodial because CK Snacks gets the Bitcoin onto their on-chain address from the fees, but then they oblige themselves to forward that money to Crypto Advanced Company, right? And in that meantime, yeah, it might be considered. But again, it's kind of like the user provided a coupon code, an affiliation voucher, and because of that, either he gets a discount or some money gets poured. I don't know. I'm not a lawyer, but yeah.
Yeah, so you would have probably to set up some kind of company in the right jurisdiction also to mitigate this. Tricky.
Yeah, but I mean, the feature would be extremely useful if it would not require the receiving party of that money to need any legal setup. Like if this can just be an anonymous individual in cyberspace, we don't care as long as somehow the users say that that guy should get some money. Yeah. No.
Tricky.
I actually think framing it as an affiliation marketing scheme is an interesting idea. I don't know. Actually, Shinobi, I see you're on the call. Do you by any chance have any thoughts on that? And I see Dan Gould wants to speak too. How's it going, Dan?
It's going well, Max. Yeah, I have a pretty cool take on the sharing there regarding if it's custodial or not, because I know the 2019 guidance from FinCEN exempts explicitly miners or miner pool operators from being money service businesses. So it seems very similar in that if you're sharing earnings, then you're not a custodian. I don't know if anyone else has read that or is familiar with that.
Aha, that's interesting. It has some similarities to a mining pool.
And it's not just for the decentralized mining pools. It straight up says the person acting as the leader of the pool claims the total amount mined and receives fees from participants to be authenticated. And it says that the cloud miner, it calls them a cloud miner, and they don't even need to be incorporated. I think, yeah, you can definitely draw parallels.
That's interesting, thanks. Well, but yeah, I will probably talk to this in length with some lawyers and see how it goes. But actually,
all right. maybe let's go on some more interesting topics, which would be
yes, please.
Which would be the choice of Lucas.
Oh, well, my point is what I would like to discuss is something that it bothers me with all the wallets. It bothers me with Wasabi too, of course. Is the incompatibilities between wallets and also how to back up the wallets. Because if you have your wallet in, I don't know, Mycelium, well, probably you cannot recover it in another wallet, and you cannot recover your Wasabi wallet in Mycelium, and you cannot, and it's all a big mess, right? And also we have different wallets have different metadata or extra information that wants to store. For example, in Wasabi, we want or would, yeah, we have probably some small pieces of information to save, and I don't know how the rest of the ecosystem is dealing with this.
So
For
it
you, for
seems
example,
like Bitcoin wallets are so innovative today that standards didn't even have yet time to emerge.
yes, and last week or the week before that, we discussed why we are in the situation where we are right now, and basically how this started with Bitcoin Core having a pool of key pairs, and then it was BIP-32, and then BIP-39, and okay, it works okay, but it was designed, in my opinion, it was designed mostly for Bitcoin Core, right? And all the derivation path and all the thing, for example, I don't know, the chain code in BIP-32 and all that stuff is all something that it was not, in my opinion. It was probably designed without without knowing how how other wallets can about the needs of the rest of the wallets, probably because there were no other wallets, right? Makes sense. But I don't know. I think, you know, in Lightning, for example, you have, if you back up something, you need to back up also the channels. In multisig wallets, you need to back up not only the one pub key, but you need to back up the other pub keys too, in order to be able to recalculate the signatures. So it's a problem, I think.
Yeah.
That there are a lot of other things. For example, just if we want, for example, to create a Payjoin, right? Of course, we will do it with Tor, but other wallets doesn't work with Tor, and not. It's a big mess. So how do you see this? Do you see something similar, or is just me? And how are you working around the problem if you have the problem?
It's a mess. Output script descriptors solve a big chunk of it. So I'm saying we need another standard to collide all the standards.
So it's going to be an organic process, right? Like if something becomes so good that every wallet wants to implement, then well, every wallet is going to implement because the market is going to choose the customer, the wallets, those implement the stuff that they want. So, I mean, I guess in the internet, I actually have no idea what happened, but there was this Oshi model, right? Like that was supposed to be the standardized version of TCP IP, maybe, and you know, like it didn't go that far. So maybe just let the market to take care of itself.
Well, but we are the market. Like the choices we make for Wasabi have a meaningful impact in the outcome of this.
No. Because right now we are talking about standardizing. We are not talking about like, oh, there is that other product like output descriptors which could make our wallet so much better. No, we are talking about, well, the output descriptor seems to become the standard or maybe not. So we should implement it because it might be a standard. You know, we have to look at features, not standards.
What problem does output descriptors purport to solve?
It gives you an exact description, literally a definition of both the script. So it gives you all the information you need to generate the script. And it works, for example, also with extended public keys. So you once define the script, and then you interchangeably add the XPub from which the wallet can generate all the individual public keys and the addresses.
So it's like an XPub key turned super Cyagene.
Yeah, you basically end up with the XPub and the key path and everything in one go, right? It's especially useful for multisig, but you still end up losing, all the essential data that you need to back up with for Lightning, for example, if that's one of the scenarios you wanted to back up. Any kind of metadata that you need. So, like if you're handling, like for WabiSabi, you've got logic around how much depth you've had with your Coinjoins. That's something quite important that you want to save, right? Otherwise, you're kind of in the dark afterwards. If you recover on a different machine, we just.
Isn't there a gap limit field in output script descriptors?
No, there isn't.
We take this logic to its logical extent. The logical extent is that the ultimate Bitcoin standard it's not XPub key, it's not output descriptors, it's not output descriptors plus more information, but it's like a standard Bitcoin wallet file. How about that?
I'm more confused than when I asked the question. Is it the problems it solve relate to finding the script? When do you lose the script? This is like for recovery purposes?
It's usually best for like interacting with outside wallets and other wallets so that when the wallet you're working with sends something external, it knows it's sending it to the right derivation path, the right script type, the right XPub, so that whatever external wallet, it's going to wind up in the right place. And it's also good for like importing keys to watch wallets and shit like that.
A way to look at it is also that the output script descriptors give you the deterministic backup, right? So this is the stuff they generate once at wallet generation, and from there on out, you can generate all the addresses, right? It does not include dynamic backups of, for example, your labels of who knows about the addresses, or your Lightning Network channels, and all these dynamic backups need to be done in a different way.
Okay, thanks, Shinobi. Thanks, Max.
Yes, but again, imagine you have you import, right, a couple of output descriptors in your wallet, right? How do you back up that? In fact, now we have other 12 words or 24 words, but an output descriptor, right? For I don't know, for one specific script, let's say, there is no, it was not designed to be, let's say, the wallet itself or easy to back up, or no, it was just for interoperability, basically.
So think of it like your XPub. Like it's just another thing like your XPub that you have to keep track of, like to pass around to the software wallets you're using.
Right. To answer the question that wasn't asked, like what problem does an XPub solve? It helps you connect a bunch of addresses together without keeping all of them. I guess maybe the problem that output descriptor solves is it lets you do that, but across multiple derivation paths.
Yeah, derivation paths, script type, like it's super
just multiple
flexible.
derivations.
Like you could tell it if I remember everything correctly. Like you could tell it to do like BEC32 scripts on a totally different like derivation path that's not standard for BEC32, and a wallet compatible with that would just know like this is what I do. So it's like It's like a more flexible equivalent of an XPub that you plug into wallets to play with.
Yeah, but I'll go ahead.
And XPubs are only used basically in the context of keys in wallets, right? Because most times we use just single sig and multisig. But actually what's happening is that these are all scripts. Right? So output script descriptors, contrarily to something like an XPub, is focused on displaying the actual script that was used to lock out these Bitcoin. So that's why it's more flexible. It can express any script type. Right?
Yeah. It basically replaces XPub, YPub, ZPub, and any other BIP-22 spec.
And also multisigs, time locks, and like anything that you can put into a script, basically.
Not exactly. I think it's a subset of miniscript, for example. So I think miniscript can do more stuff, but yeah, it can do a lot.
But I think that the issue is that it's still not enough to do a universal Bitcoin backup, right? You need so much more data. Like, if you want to be efficient about it, you need so much more data, especially if you're handling privacy, if you're handling Coinjoins, all that data. It's still an essential part of a wallet that you need. So an output descriptor by itself is still not enough. It's only enough to save your funds, but not enough to preserve essential data that you need stored for most wallets, I would guess.
Yeah, and the sad thing is that this important information is always going to be dynamic and be created alongside with the wallet is being lived, right? So this is an issue I think that only live backups can solve, encrypted on some other server, for example.
Gotcha. Well, I mean, honestly, though, it's also just as flexible as output descriptors are. It's probably a bad idea to use them to describe very non-standard stuff right now.
Yeah, at least till miniscript is more along the way.
Mm-hmm.
Well, but my point about interoperability was mostly because, everybody is creating their own technology. And some people just don't stop, and probably they are right, but they don't stop to share the idea of to create a BIP. They just write the implementation, and with this kind of, for example, YPub, FPub, TPub, and all that kind of crap, and people using completely non-standard derivation paths, and it's a huge mess. And that's only for the keys, right? I mean, for the key derivation algorithm. And just imagine the rest. I mean, when you want to save something else, I don't know what, but it's completely a problem. And now, we have output descriptor, but in my opinion, it is for communication mostly. It's not something that you want to use for backing up your wallet. The best way is still something like the BIP-39 and back up your words in paper, or who knows. But
well, I mean, yes, to an extent, right? If you want to back up in meat space, then recovery words are the best UX you're going to get. But I mean, maybe we can transform an output script descriptor into humanly readable words, right? I mean, that should just be an encoding issue. But also, if you want to do digital backups in cyberspace, then the output script descriptor makes sense again.
Also, why we shouldn't be conflating the word seed with the output descriptor. I mean, that's like conflating your private key backups with the XPub. Like, those can be completely independent things. And like, output descriptors are not trying to replace your word seed. They're trying to replace the XPub and that public data that doesn't put your money at risk. And really, things like this are absolutely necessary to bridge those gaps of everybody doing their own thing and being incompatible. like everyone with their own derivation paths, their own schemes. Output descriptors are a way that you can bridge those together so they actually work properly.
Well, I mean, is it actually correct? Because you can actually store an experf inside the output descriptors, as far as I remember.
Yep.
That is a horrible idea. Who the fuck put that in that spec?
No, why? It's useful too.
I disagree. I'm bowing out before I start yelling.
Shinobi, I'm going to ask you to please not say stuff is good or bad without explaining why. It's not helpful. It's so confusing. It's the second time. What do you mean?
I don't think that
Why is it
copies
bad?
of a key set should be made and transferred around digitally. If you're doing that, it should be done analog and it should be transported between different secure devices. I am not on board with the idea of making multiple copies of private keys and transferring them around digitally on network devices. I think that's a horrible idea. Like,
But I mean, I think it depends on the scope, though, like you're looking at. I mean, from my point of view, it's like if I'm creating a wallet that's going to have a hot wallet in it, wouldn't it be nice if I only have one configuration item that I'm just sitting with all the data you need to create the derivation scheme, the pathway, and the private key that's allocated to just this one XPub in one go?
No,
Yep.
I think that you should have everything but the private key, and you should have to pull that word seed out and punch that in. Like, I do not like the idea of private keys flying around to the winds.
So guys, I started documenting some of these wallet configuration files. I think most of you guys who are on there, Specter, Wasabi wallet. I also have Electrum. I wrote up just some TypeScript definitions and outputted some JSON schema. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that. The reason for that, it was to look into this problem of what are similar within the wallets, and in terms of the data that they're storing, unspent transaction outputs, list of transactions or some of them, private keys, etc., etc. So there's two categories. There's application-specific configurations, right, like app settings and stuff. And then there's the things that are a bit more portable, like the UTXOs with the labels and whatnot. So yeah, just wanted to add that. I sent some links earlier in the chat as well if you'd like to have a look at it, just to see what, just to compare.
Anka? Well, in traditional Shinobi fashion, since I slept in, if there's nothing else anyone has to say for the minute, anyone feel like catching me up in 5 seconds to what I missed?
We're
Well,
gonna
go ahead.
build BTC Pay plugin with WabiSabi and Specter RPC server integration, or Specter might use RPC server and Wasabi.
Okay, so you're talking about bolting Wasabi, or I mean Specter onto Wasabi onto BTC Pay?
Yeah, more like getting WabiSabi inside these wallets.
Okay, so yeah, okay, so other wallets hooking up to the Wasabi API.
Not even just that. I think from the BTC Pay side, in terms of potential, it's more like embedding Wasabi inside BTC Pay. Like it would be running in process.
Okay, so there's two separate topics, the API plugin and then embedding.
Mm-hmm. And I think
All right,
the third topic that we have is Dan Gould with Gencase, which just is basically like a Wasabi fork that wraps it for iOS. So that's, maybe Dan could speak a bit about that approach.
Sure. Yeah, the main piece of work that had to be done to have that happen is make Wasabi Wallet a library that could be pulled instead of a whole runtime. I forget who was talking about it earlier. Maybe it was Moritz was asking if there's an API available for WabiSabi. And the main issue with getting Coinjoin functionality into a wallet is that you have to do all the crypto. You have to have the client for the protocol on the device. So we turn that into a library. And then from there, of course, there are issues like Tor integration, making sure that SOC server works, and getting Neutrino to function in the constraints of the device. But that's basically where we're at. We had a release last week that reduced our instability by 90%. So I'm feeling good in general about the direction, and definitely open to questions people have. We want to implement Payjoin at some point too. And the interesting thing there is that you can have the ephemeral hidden service available on your mobile device, which is open like while you talk to someone else.
Even in the background?
Not all the time. So it'd be totally like you can have it in the background to some extent. Like if you went and sent a message to someone to send them your hidden service address, at that time you could have it running in the background, but it wouldn't be something you'd want open all the time, I don't think.
So did you guys just refactor the C# code base into the library, or did you like completely rewrite it in something for iOS? Like, sorry, I'm not really too familiar with.
Yeah, it's refactored. Like we've got the same tests. We ripped HWI out for simplicity for now, but it's the same C# library, and we put a different front end and different application lifecycle management to work with the operating system.
Okay, so that should be generally portable to any system.
Yeah, it's forked from, I believe, v1.1.11, so the last major release of Wasabi.
All right, so that sounds like a great starting point for ripping apart and putting in other things.
Yeah, I mean, it works. We've been operating since June, and some people are fanatics. Happy to get more people on board. I think you'd be pleasantly surprised, and the UI is coming quite quickly along.
Yeah, I mean, I was just excited to see you guys fork it, period, and see somebody besides Wasabi running a coordinator.
Yeah, anyone can access that as well. It's the 100th of a Bitcoin denomination rather than a 10th. That's posted on our GitHub. Hopefully we'll have a demo of the whole app in video rather than just the Coinjoin portion sometime soon. And I think it'll make more sense when that comes around.
Yeah, and it's kind of interesting. The fun part from my end is I get to run the iOS stuff and hack it into a browser app from my end. I don't think you're very happy with that one though, Dan.
I wonder what's I wonder if you could connect it to Tor and get it to work as an alternate to MetaMask. You know, if you had a complete privacy wallet in your browser in lieu of MetaMask, I don't know how. I guess syncing with the network would also be difficult. I don't know. Could you have half a gig of data that you store in browser? I don't see why not.
I mean, right now, so running it, there's a bit of a difference here. You're still having the server running on your computer, like a web server. So I'm not running it. It's running in Blazor, but it's not running in the WebAssembly version, so it's not completely embedded into the browser. Yeah, we could run it into a WebAssembly thing. I think in the future. I think there's some crypto missing from the .NET 3 libraries. I think .NET 6 will fix that all and make it work properly with no modifications. In theory, at least.
There are like 8 asterisks after that statement.
Yeah, yeah. So right now it's completely hacked into place so that it can run in the browser just for easier testing and prototyping. but it is saving. It is synchronizing the blockchain through Neutrino and saving it to the app data on my Windows machine. I'm pretty sure it works on Linux too. And I also kind of hacked it around at one point. I did manage to get it running on Android, but that wasn't the most optimal performance, let's say that. Like everything was crashing all around me on that one. But yeah.
Did you actually got Wasabi running in a browser?
Not really. The UI was running in the browser.
No, what do you mean? It definitely runs.
Yeah.
The answer is yes.
Yeah. Terms and conditions apply. But yeah. It does run in the browser. It does run, and to be fair, I really doubt we can make it run into like this fake MetaMask Wasabi crazy thing in like a little tab thingy next to your address bar. That would be, I don't know. I feel stressed just thinking about that. So
that might be far-fetched, but even on iOS, we are running Wasabi essentially in the browser. Like basically we have a hybrid web app and that's what's happening.
Pretty much, yeah. It's running Blazor. It's running a Blazor UI. So, and everything is running through a .NET Core. Is it .NET Core or Mono?
It's Mono, so it's Xamarin.
Yeah.
I don't know how that's. Everything is really in flux in this like stack. I think .NET 6 is going to push stuff around quite a lot.
Yeah. Hopefully for the better.
I mean, could we potentially have a desktop client and a browser client that use like that use the same app directory, basically?
For sure. The browser one is actually running in. It's saving some of the data inside an app data / chain case folder. I'm guessing technically Wasabi could kind of read the same folder data. I think it's the same, right, Dan? I don't think it's completely different in that regard.
Yeah, all the caveats are around just using the operating system. It doesn't use Tor right now. The one we have on the browser does not install or use Tor. That's like one big issue. But as far as just saving a JSON file, yeah, that it can read the same. It can read the same blocks files and wallet files and all that. Index file.
I mean, the Tor part is not that hard to do. It's just run a Docker container next to it and just point the SOX5 client to it at that point, right? Or we could just embed it into the server if we really wanted to. But yeah, it's not the point of chain case at this anyway. So the main reason why it's running in the browser is just for faster prototyping, just so you don't have to wait for the app to load on your phone and then you have to try it out and then you reload it and all that stuff.
Right, we got hot reload in there through the browser.
Yeah, that too.
Nice.
I got Specter is able to run in the browser as well, right? At least the development environment. But how much of the how much of the rest of it can run in the browser? And is that like something that people would want to do even?
I mean, in general, it might be interesting to connect to a remote machine via the browser. I'm not sure. Is that in scope for this discussion, or is that a different model?
So the browser is just for like connecting to something like the remote server or whatever.
Yeah, like Write the Lightning or Thunderhub or something.
Gotcha.
But that's something different, right? It's just the browser web interface, but the actual stuff is running on the server. What you're talking about is that the actual software is in the browser itself.
No, I was asking like to what degree does it like kind of start and stop? Because I did get Specter. Because Specter's UI is also written in like HTML. So the development environment, you can, like, if you spin it up, it opens up a browser page and you can access it. I just don't know how much of the like backend functions it's able to do in that version of it. But I think Moritz is gone. I didn't see him, so he'd probably be the one to answer that. Or Ben.
Ben is still here.
Yeah. Can you repeat the question?
Yeah, so I got Specter to run the development environment in the browser, but I was just looking at the configuration page. I didn't like interact with like try to set up a wallet or anything like this. So I was just asking, since everyone's on this topic of, wallets running in the browser, to what degree can Specter run right now in the browser?
So with the browser, I mean, everything runs in the browser. So it's basically Specter is a Flask app. So yeah, everything is on the front end side. Everything is JavaScript, HTML stuff. On the back end, it's Python, and this allows us to do some more advanced stuff, I guess. Because running Tor and stuff like that would I'm not sure it would be possible from the browser itself. I don't think so. But yeah, so the browser code is more for the UI, I guess.
Do people request having this like is that a request for Wasabi or Specter or Chaincase or whatever? Is there a demand for having these browser-based wallets? Because like given the security risks of it as well, if you have extensions that spying on the page and whatnot. But is there a demand for it?
I know people who operate with hundreds of millions of dollars in Ethereum tokens in the browser. So people really like using browser extension wallets.
Random idea. If something goes into the browser that people are using for a web page, maybe that thing should only get a child BIP-85 key, and it shouldn't be allowed to touch the other keys.
More generally, so what does a wallet do? I think it has like 3 layers of usage. One of them is this is what wallets specialize in. So either you'd have something specific to do with the blockchain layer, like Wasabi does, or you have something that's like Lightning nodes. That's another example of something that's specifically about the Bitcoin protocol, but also extends to smart contracts. So you're doing some application specific script. Bisq uses that as well. And then the third layer of kind of wallet responsibilities are managing, allowing you to spread your credentials in physical space in a way that's actually secure, follows some local policy. And ideally in the future, those 3 layers should be completely independent. Like you should be able to compose your multisig policy that you, define with your business partners or something, including say a hardware wallet, like whatever. You should be able to compose that with an application layer, so something like Bisq that actually needs to make specific outputs of specific contracts, and you should be able to compose that with a blockchain layer wallet that manages, for example, network level privacy, and in general helps to move funds between actual sets of credentials, like allocate which UTXOs are spendable by which specific policy keys.
Because it's what you just said, Dan, just blew my fucking mind. Like that is horrifying. Like segregate keys that touch a real browser.
Yeah, I agree. It's just like people go for the easiest experience. If they can, in 3 clicks from watching a YouTube video, install infrastructure for their business, they'll do it.
that blows my mind. Like I just cannot wrap my head around that. When I bought my first Bitcoin, I got the Shieldblock wallet on an Android tablet, sent the coins there, and then immediately put it in airplane mode, turn it off, and let the charge die, and just left them there for like 6 months because it's like, holy shit, everything can steal these. Where do I put these?
Yeah, I do. I don't know if it's going to change or not. I think people will get wiser to segregating keys, but at the same time, if we have more people on board, more people are going to use solutions that exist in the browser. It's hard to say. It's definitely not what I want to build right now, right? I don't think it's the most secure environment, so I don't think it's the best way to spend resources.
So I was helping one project this weekend on the FOMO hackathon, and it's a Lightning browser extension similar to Lightning Joule. And the idea there is that you load in some macaroons and connect to your node, and then you're able to pay for content on the web using this extension with like prompts, and you can set allowances and whatnot. But this one relies on connecting to and authenticating to like a remote node, right? Versus like crypto stuff happening in the browser. But I guess like the authentication tokens, I guess the authentication tokens can still be, or the macaroons can still be like hijacked, but perhaps you can, I'm not too sure about like the extent of like permissions you can do in Lightning, but maybe there's some kind of like rate limiting or something that you can set on the macaroon permissions.
At the very least, so macaroons support what's called caveats, where you can add additional restrictions in like object capability lingo. That would be called attenuating the capability. So you can, like, if you have a macaroon, you know how to produce valid macaroons with additional constraints. So you can create another one that says like this expires, and the default for the Lightning command line utility is to only transmit tokens that expire immediately. But I mean, you can apply the same kind of approach to limiting the macaroon, so you configure into a client and say, have it expire in a day or something.
Can you do by amount?
I don't know if Lightning supports that specifically, like LND. It's definitely possible in principle with macaroons. Like you could invent caveats for literally anything. You could, get very fine-grained with the actual permissions. Like you could have a specific endpoint like template or something like that. So only allow single use of a token to make a specific payment or something like that. Like in principle, the object capability model is like very well suited for this kind of restriction of access rights in a way that allows delegation between bits of software.
I like these object capabilities.
Yeah, I mean, as long as you can rate limit that in the sense where a user can go to the real node and stop things, like that's infinitely better than just putting keys in a browser.
Well, in principle, I mean, you would want to just have different things, like the web wallet. Its job is to integrate spending into your browsing experience, right? Its job is not necessarily to manage node state or key material or anything. It's just responsible for saying what should be done, right? What transactions need, or what UTXOs need to come into existence for my function to have been fulfilled. And they can delegate that behavior to a lower level wallet that actually manages, right, like the policies, like what sort of UTXO selection are you doing, or I think that's where a lot of the friction in like interoperability exists. Like that, there's no coherent separation between layers of like responsibilities for different wallets, and then every wallet ends up specializing in its own layer and kind of neglects the other responsibilities of what an idealized kind of wallet could be.
Would you be able to do something like set that a plugin up like that Macaroon authenticated to a node on the same machine, but then instead of handling everything through that, literally just use a URI request from the plugin to bring up the actual wallet and authorize it there in like a smooth flow?
Well, then in that case, you probably wouldn't need permissions and stuff if it's in the URI, right?
Yeah, but I'm just thinking in terms of like, at least you have to, screw with the plugin before it'll just start spamming URI requests at you. You know what I mean?
I don't. So, at what point in the process is a URI introduced, and who generates it, and who queries it?
Well, I'm saying like instead of like handling things through purely like Macaroon authentication, just go to the plugin, click the user actively click something, and then that authenticate with the node and launch the URI if that authentication passes.
Well, the whole point of doing it that other way, so that would, in the Macaroon like flow, that would kind of be like a third-party delegation type thing. So if you have a certain capability and you can sign with a public key, then you can say, like, I vouch for the bearer of this token. And the backend server can kind of authenticate that and, gate limit your access or enforce some caveats that the third party imposes on the token. But like macaroons are basically like a cookie. They're something that you attach to an existing request. So like if you don't have the macaroon, you would be redirected to some page potentially via such a URI where you would be able to obtain that through a typical webflow. That's kind of what was described in the paper introducing them. I don't know to what extent Lightning supports that.
My only thinking in just have the authentication before launching the URI is so maybe you could just restrict URIs like that and not have cheeky fuckers just launch like URI requests for opening Lightning payments by default on pages everywhere or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think that highlights like another big problem that we have, which like if you have two wallets installed, they're all using the same namespace. So they're kind of like competing and like.
Okay, so you would just have like 5 Lightning wallets open if you had a bunch installed.
Well, like on mobile, it just chooses, I think, like the first one that you installed. So if you installed like a wallet for testing like years ago, it'll like open this one when you open the Bitcoin URI. And then on desktop, it's like maybe you can configure that somehow. I'm not exactly sure, but like how it's designed in the operating system currently, it's that the URI is for like one specific like application, right? Like Facebook or something. Facebook had their own URI or whatever. It would just be like opening the Facebook app or something. It wasn't like really designed for like something as open. I feel as Bitcoin.
Mm-hmm.
Surely that would be solvable using a simple app that just knows how to recognize the various BIP-21 things and delegate them to like default, like a wallet picker kind of. Like that doesn't sound like an app that's too difficult to develop, right?
Yeah, that could be like a little middle ground until the operating system kind of evolves a bit more. Yeah, someone said like the same behavior as default browser. Yeah, the thing is, it's like currently we use so many different wallets. I have like, I don't know, 5, 10. I'm testing a whole bunch. So having to set like which one is default, I have no idea which one is default for me. I just like use whichever has like some funds in it, I guess. And so I kind of like would like to switch between them or have the option to like, hey, which one do you want to open? Maybe in the future.
Well, I guess that's default wallet and the right click with open with.
Yeah, true. Open with. Yeah, that's yeah, but like when you like like if you click a link on a website, you know, then I'll have to maybe maybe that can actually be mocked up in JavaScript or something. When you right click on a BIP-21 URI or Lightning URI, it's gonna say add like in the context menu, open with. Oh no, I'm not sure. Oh, okay. Because you need access to the operating system still. Okay, maybe not. I think the application switcher route is probably the easier one to go to.
Yay, guys. Bitcoin is going to eat the world tomorrow. It's perfect.
In 2 weeks' time.
Oh, man. Well, I guess anybody mind a little bit of a random topic shift?
Nope.
In terms of plugging other wallets on top of Wasabi instead of integrating Wasabi into other things, has anybody really considered the limitations of the neutrino filters being tailored just for BEC32? Because that would kind of have the implication of any other TypeScript or script type cannot use Wasabi as the balance information backend and would require a second one to be able to utilize any of those UTXOs.
Yep, that's an issue.
I think that's only really an issue if you want the network layer to deliver your block filters. There's the proposal from Justus, I forget, sorry.
Ravnar, the BIP-47 guy.
Yeah, so like that proposal for how to do like filtering of transaction data is actually like really nice. It's really flexible, and there's good reasons to kind of support that because that would solve this problem in general. Like that said, Wasabi currently just fetches block filters from the coordinator, so it doesn't even care about the network. It could get block filters for any type of proprietary data. So like filtering by script type, by transaction, by like literally anything could be defined when you use it that way.
And for what it's worth, Lucas already wrote the code for taproot filters.
Okay. Well, yeah, I mean, that's good if that's a simple thing and there's already some groundwork for it, but it's just like, that's like absolutely necessary to be able to just take general wallets and plug them in here.
What about, is it possible to switch out the entire network layer with something else? Like in the case of putting Wasabi inside BTC Pay, we have our own tracker, right? So we wouldn't need Neutrino. We have a full node, and we have our own whole UTXO and block retrieval mechanism that we could use.
Yeah, that would be best.
Adam can probably say more, but I think currently like the wallet synchronizer class is responsible for that. I don't know how generic it is, but like there's a lot of consideration under that for like how you fetch specific data. So like does NBitcoin is it also careful to like obtain blocks from Tor nodes, or sorry, nodes connected through Tor and careful not to request the same like the block data from the node where filter data was requested from. I mean, sorry, it doesn't have filter support, but like it's careful about broadcast and it's careful about block requests. Is my point.
So it's not on top of my hand how hard this would be from an implementation point of view, but from a theoretical point of view, this doesn't apply to full nodes, right? Like BTC Pay or Specter Wallet. These concerns are more like light wallets, right?
Well, I mean, I think what Andrew's kind of getting at is if you just stuck with the current like balance retrieval mechanism in Wasabi, then that would just eat up a bunch of resources on the BTC Pay instance, and like there's no good reason for that when it could just hook up more directly into that and use less resources.
Yeah, definitely.
It also, if I'm not mistaken, has some smart support for pruned nodes, right? Where you can fetch historical blocks if you're still missing them? Or am I misremembering?
We talked about that. I think we talked about it and you suggested it, but I don't think we added support to fetch specific blocks, but we do have a bunch of stuff. Basically, so NB Explorer is hooking up to a Bitcoin node, which can be pruned, and then it can scan stuff through it. But it also does a P2P communication layer. So I think it does do something that I can't remember actually if it does. It does a lot of fancy stuff.
So sorry, wait a moment. The point of this would be to not even build the filters, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, if there's anything you need to track, NB Explorer can track it in advance with no issue.
Yeah. So we are. Yeah.
No, just that if you have your own node and you trust on your node, in NBitcoin, there is a pull request that contains all the messages, for implementing the VIP 157, I think, right? And all the communication is okay. You can just fetch the filters from your own node, and you don't need to validate them, right? Because, and Wasabi will find if the blocks that it needs. And Wasabi can also be configured to fetch the blocks from your node. So you don't need to build the filters, and you don't need to do anything. It's mostly done. The pull request is not merged because basically, the specification says that you have to first download all the block headers, and then once you have that, fetch filters from different sources and validate them and all that stuff. And I didn't know how the NBitcoin. I didn't understand how NBitcoin works in regard of those things. But all the rest is all done.
Oh, okay. I'm just also curious if we need to handle filters, right? I mean, because the way NB Explorer is doing it is basically you tell it track an XPub, track that, track an address, track whatever, and it will, as soon as it detects them, any transfers to them in any blocks or the mempool, it will keep it will download that data and store it locally permanently. Doesn't matter if the prune node would remove it. So basically, we have all the data we need permanently for these kind of things, as long as we tell it in advance to look for them.
The abstractions, at least in the V11 release, are still pretty leaky. Like the Wasabi client that synchronizes the coordinator with the app, I believe, does require some knowledge about the filters. It doesn't just ask about transactions. I don't know if that changed in 12 or if I'm looking at the wrong thing, but I think that's how it works right now. Because I know the synchronizer takes care of getting the Coinjoin data as well as the filter data, and I don't know if they're totally separated.
No, it's not done because it's not part of our use cases. But Wasabi works with transactions, right? If you connect Wasabi to your node and you or node or software, whatever, using the peer-to-peer network, and you send transactions to Wasabi, it will process it. And so it doesn't need to get blocks and get filters and if you know all your transactions, you can send the transactions to Wasabi, and Wasabi will process it and calculate everything, the balance and all the stuff. So basically, we discover we get the filters to discover the blocks to get the transactions, basically. But if you already have the transactions, well, of course, we need to disable the synchronizer, right? Because the synchronizer is the one that tries to do that thing. So you just send the transactions to the Wasabi mempool, and that's all.
Okay, cool. Yeah, that would be nice. I think it would save a lot of effort, at least on the BTC Pay side, at least memory wise, right? And it's already doing all the hard work underneath. No point in replicating it twice in the service. Cool.
Yep.
Just curious, but what about adding support for Electrum servers then?
But like in Wasabi directly?
Well, I mean, maybe.
I think the other way, I mean, you could expose NB Explorer as an Electrum endpoint and serve like Electrum, just like Electrum personal server or a Bitcoin wallet tracker.
Well, yeah, my idea is more like if someone is already running an Electrum server, we might as well use that one. Right? Like it's about running it on the trusted node, and most people who run a node also have an Electrum server. So that, and they don't have NB Explorer, right? Only BTC Pay servers users use that.
So you're saying Wasabi would support loading blocks and transactions through Electrum instead of Neutrino, or maybe I misunderstood?
Yeah, basically, it's an opt-in feature.
I think it's a slippery slope, to be honest. As soon as you add Electrum support, people are gonna be like, I don't need to run a node, and then they're like just screwing it up.
Well, you could just fucking set that up so that it won't call anything but localhost for that. And kind of force people to go tweak with the code. No one will ever go full retard, guys, I promise.
I don't believe you.
Honestly, though, I do kind of agree with Andrew. That just seems like that would lead to users stupid.
The other direction does kind of make sense, though. If you're already using like NB Explorer and you want to use Electrum or a wallet that queries it, like I think the async client uses that. Like it might make sense to allow like serve those requests off of your own node that's already running NB Explorer instead of.
Yeah, I mean, we already host software in the Docker installer for BTC Pay to, I forgot what it was. I think we have Electrum personal server, Electrum X, BWT. I think is almost there as well. So there's so many options to do it as well. I think Nicholas actually wanted to add like an Electrum compatibility layer, but in the end, it was like there's so many people doing it already that maybe it's not worth it.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Is this going to be your new Mumble server, Shinobi?
Never! Jitsi will never replace Mumble.
Well, but basically, I was asking about the compatibility and interoperability and UX, and if I wanted to know if you know about if finally Payjoin is something useful or just I said something like a developers brain masturbation or things like that, because it's basically what Shinobi said. You speak one day with a Bitcoin Core developer, next day with a cryptographer, then with a mathematician, then with and someone that knows about nuclear physics. And people doesn't know anything about that. In fact, there are people who are victims of the most ridiculous scams every day. So people is much stupid than what you can even imagine. And then the idea that we have to do something that is really easy to do, really easy to switch from one wallet to another wallet, and privacy has to be by default in our case, because otherwise I think it's really hard to explain people how to use these tools.
Well, maybe
that
like Payjoin specifically, like that can be very useful if you're doing a decent amount of volume on chain and like transacting a lot. Like, the reason I haven't implemented that for my shirt store is really two reasons. One, I don't want to have the on-chain wallet with hotkeys because we're also running a Lightning node. But two, like so much more of our payments come in over Lightning that we're not doing enough volume on chain to make Payjoin make sense. You know what I mean? After a couple Payjoins, like everything just tied together in a way that's obviously like this is all related, and there's not enough separate UTXOs to kind of isolate and optimize that. So it's like Payjoin can be very useful if you're actually transacting on chain a lot, but if you're barely touching chain, then you know what I mean?
Yeah, and you mentioned like building tools. People are stupid. Those are keywords I pulled out there. I think the state that we're in right now, working on this Payjoin thing or Coinjoin and all these different components, where we are building tools, and for the mass market, it's experiences that we have to move into, right? So like these kinds of like interactions with Payjoins and figuring that out and creating the libraries and whatnot, it's, a lot of it hasn't been done yet. So it's not an easy drop in that you can put in any kind of application, so that we can like have really cool UX that makes sense to the user, that's familiar with them, to them. So we are still at the stage where we're building out the tools. And just as you said, I don't think it's a matter of the users being too stupid to use them, because we are kind of building tools for ourselves, or people that are a bit technical. So I think we have to have a bit of empathy in that the tools that we're building is not for the mass market. We need a new class of software and design for that.
Well, I mean, dude, this is just really super long-term stuff in my mind. I mean, like transacting it needs to lift off chain, which completely changes the dynamics of privacy, like with Lightning in a proper state, so that you just have passive privacy for regular payments. And then these types of Coinjoin mechanics are just going to be how those things touch chain. But like, you know what I mean? Like, we're not going to really be able to put this kind of stuff in grandma's hands until that's the state of things, and a lot of logic can be automated. Because like right now on chain, like, I'm sorry, you can't just automate the logic in a software wallet. Like, I bought drugs on the darknet market with this UTXO. Don't ever fucking tie that to this UTXO. Like, you can't just automate that without requiring the user having to program themselves like all kinds of complex logic into UTXO labels
in a way where the software can reason about that. Like it can't, like a wallet can't just look at UTXOs without the user programming and defining and deciding what can tie together and what can't, like how to handle those UTXOs. The wallet doesn't understand any of that unless you make it.
Yeah, and as soon as we go to another application, pulling that output descriptor expub, all that, we put that in, then all those labels are gone, and then you call the user stupid for not for spending that drug-tainted UTXO. It's like, oh, well, it's your fault, and you should have labeled your UTXOs. It's like, well, I did before, but infrastructure didn't allow me to easily, migrate to another wallet.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this could also go down to how, like a label server, right? I think Electrum has been doing it for a few. I don't even know if it was an official Electrum plugin, but there was an Electrum label server, which allows you to synchronize labels on UTXOs and transactions between your Electrum wallets across machines, right? I don't know if that's even still in use.
Yeah, and I would guess it's pretty similar to what Lightning wallets currently use with encrypted channel backups. Right? You just encrypt this backup information to your 24 words and then upload it to whatever server you want because, well, it's encrypted.
Yeah, I found what Shinobi said earlier today quite funny because, never copy your private key and stuff like that. And, when we do look at like the mainstream user and stuff, how much would it's a great UX innovation that came out, the mnemonics and stuff, but is that where it ends? We had wallet data files and, then we had like BIP-22 or whatever, and then, now we have output descriptors, but like, is that where it's gonna end? I don't think so. And does it also end with the user having to like interact with these weird symboled pieces of code looking things? Probably not. Right?
So the way I look at it long term is your seed is going to be the bedrock that you use to encrypt and back up all the stateful information that you're going to need in the long term.
Yep.
Except the account and the path and all those other things that you're going to need. So,
No, you can still. No, I think what Shinobi means is that you take all the metadata that is non-static or non-deterministic, but that is dynamic, like labels, like channel backup transactions, and all that stuff. You encrypt that payload with your 24 recovery words, and then you have some ciphertext that you can upload to arbitrary servers securely. But you can always recover it if you have only your 24 words. Right? You get, even if you have only the 24 words, you get at least your private keys. If you have 24 words and that encrypted payload, you also get all the metadata.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah, that sounds fair. Yeah.
By the way, with like previously you said about labels and output descriptors. So a while ago I was suggesting this was before output descriptors. So some of the details were like still, kind of open, but output descriptor solved that. But like, if you have a privacy specialized wallet, that's a wallet that in principle you could configure any sort of standard or application wallet to send all of its change instead of to its own seed from its own hot wallet, send it to the external like output descriptor for the privacy wallet. And then the privacy wallet would be in charge of basically rebalancing everything, coin joining, making sure there's separation, producing UTXOs that are then, already set up to go back to the individual spending wallets that you need in order to like perform your various operations and your various application specific wallets. So like if you structure it this way, then you're never spending any coins that have labels associated with them. That's the responsibility of the privacy wallet, to make sure that like the hot wallets of the various other wallets only have access to coins that they can spend safely, regardless of their coin selection policy. And if all the change from those transactions always cycles back to the privacy wallet, then you can make sure that there's no no potentiality of accidentally violating this invariant by spending change along with a different output, or a scenario, two change outputs together. So the individual wallet transactions for BISC or whatever could be completely disjoint on chain.
Yeah, that's for sure the goal. And that's again why I really like the idea of having a server-side Wasabi daemon running in the background for always-on mixing. And you can just deposit your change coins or your receiving coins directly in there. And after Anon said it reached, it just gets distributed at a certain percentage into your cold storage and spending wallets. That's the feature request the size of a boat. Oh, go shovel.
Just gonna randomly say that this kind of different wallet management, it just screams BIP-85.
Which one is that? BIP-85?
The deterministic seed generation from a master seed. So you go down the derivation path and get a new word seed that can never retrace to the master one.
But I mean, do you really need that level of complexity? You don't really need that. You can just use different accounts on one seed, right?
The nice thing is
have your master cold storage seed and then generate all the other seeds for all the other specific stuff you're using off of that, and just keep that one thing safe to back up them all.
Is there anything that implements it?
Currently, just the cold card.
Yay.
But the nice thing is that this composes with BIP-32 accounts very cleanly. I mean, you can just configure xpubs or xprivs, or use BIP-39. You just need to keep track of what you've been doing so that you don't you know how it's set up. But as far as I know, every wallet that supports BIP-39 is BIP-85 compatible already, right?
Yep. You just generate the child word seed from the master one and just plop it into something.
What if you had to just go with the account routes where you just generate xpubs based on the scenario, you just categorize them by you said the first 100 xpub accounts to being low privacy, instant doxing level of privacy on those first 100 accounts. Anything in the next 100 is privacy focused, and so forth. You just categorize it by the hundreds, and then you can just do a spec based on that. Anything in these levels of accounts can be kind of safe to use, and anything inside it. If you had to create categories just based on xpubs, you'd have 100 accounts to use, just with separate wallets, kind of entirely separate wallets.
But it's not as generally flexible for users. You know what I mean? I can have my cold storage seed, make a new one, plug that into Wasabi, and use that to make 3 more. And I can always just at any point in that tree take that key, go easily import that with no headache or anything into almost any wallet, and that compromises nothing above it in the tree. It's universally compatible. I don't have to worry about nonsense like account levels, and I can structure that tree however I want, because it's just toss a seed in something and that can always just make more seeds.
That would make the gap limit a laughing a laughing situation, right? I mean, in terms of recovery.
Why? I mean, you could just limit yourself to like the tree of seeds and only make 10 child seeds or something off of one seed. Like, so you're just, it's a child seed from 1 to 10 check stuff.
You're expecting the user to do this? So, like, what if I put that seed inside of like another wallet, and then that wallet thinks it's now the master seed, and then I start deriving a bunch of different new seeds, and I don't know. It seems difficult. How do you keep track of it? I haven't read the spec for BIP-85, but
I mean, how is it more difficult than keeping track of accounts and like it's just assign canonical numbers to it's literally the same thing as an account, except you get a whole word seed out of it. It's derivation path, index number for that path, spit out a new seed.
Yeah,
it's
but
literally the exact same indexing logic.
No, but for the new seed that you create, you could then, I'm assuming, create additional seeds for that. Like, how do you stop that?
You don't. It's an infinite tree.
Exactly. Yeah. So
it's just a hierarchical deterministic wallet that has xpubs and xproofs, but this is just a spec to get each xproof into its own unique set of 24 words. That's it.
Mm-hmm. So like all it is just it's easier to import into stuff.
Yeah, for certain. Like, I like it a lot. I just think like a user can get like really lost because maybe they wouldn't import like a grandchild of an expert or something, you know. But in the case of like the 35, they might end up doing something like that.
I mean, like, think about why, like, you're acting like in the infinity of indexing space is a problem that exists for everything in HD wallets everywhere. Like, why would a user make a great grandchild instead of just one thing and a bunch of children? Like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't see the fundamental difference here in like a user could get lost in that.
Yeah, I really like it because one seed to rule them all, we kind of fan here. But I think if to another wallet, it's just a normal master seed, even though it's a child, that can cause issues.
One of the downsides specifically for privacy is that if the master private key or even public key gets compromised, it's like the nuclear option where everything is clustered. And this kind of stands in harsh contrast to key rotation, where you get a completely new wallet that is not linked to the previous deterministic wallet.
Yeah, but ideally you're doing this off of a cold storage seed that's never going to touch anything. So that's never going to be compromised. So all you're really worrying about is the compromise of child seeds, which can't compromise anything above them.
Yeah, that's true. And you wouldn't even put the master xpub in any software wallet, I presume. You would just always take the child xpub.
I imagine the typical use case is somebody starts using some wallets, backs up seeds, gets fed up with making more seed backups, and then says, how about I use my brand new cold card to just make a bunch of new seeds for all of these wallets that I only need to back up one. So I think it's not really something that like users that are not already pushing it are going to even know exists or care that exists. And therefore it would be more like, it's for managing your backup policy more than it is managing like how applications interact. It's more about like segregating them. Whereas like the 32 paths are, that's for wallets that need to transact together on the same stuff. It's just a different use case.
Yeah, I get that then. Because, that would be something that I would use personally, just to, not having to generate a whole bunch of seeds and keep backing them up all the time, and feeling confident that I just have to do one of them.
It's also nice that I could give these private keys to my family easily, right, or to friends, and they think that they actually have their own wallet, but in fact, it's all controlled by me. And I get all the sats.
See, like, here's a Wasabi case, like, in terms of BIP-85. Like, you know, part of the, or one of the long-term goals with WabiSabi is to have, like, slower, gradual rounds and, like, extend the signing process so people can just do Coinjoins directly out of, like, cold storage. Well, let's say that I want to mix a UTXO a bunch of times and then spit it out into cold storage. But then maybe 6 months later, I want to directly pull that out of cold storage and mix it a couple more times. Like, you can just pop that child seed out of your hardware device and just make that your Wasabi hot wallet. And these two things directly can interact with each other. You only have that one backup. Like, you know, that's the huge win here. Like, nothing much said, is just having that singular backup for something. But you can still have all of these segregated wallets for different applications, for different purposes. Like,
The nice thing is WabiSabi will work with hardware wallets, so you don't even have to move out of your cold storage into a hot wallet.
What you described there, though, is like that's something you can do only once per child seed, though.
Yeah.
well, no, but I'm saying, like, you want to have, like, a mix wallet. Well, hey, that's a hot wallet. If you want to have it mixing regularly, just let it mix regularly. Pop it into cold storage. Like, you still have the same backup thing, but both of those things can mix, you know, in their own timetables. You can always go remix out of cold storage. You can have that hot wallet that initially mixes things a bunch of times, but it's all in the same seed. You know, like, that's the key point here. You get the ability to have all these different wallets, but your mind is not exploding over the giant pile of seed backups you have. And so it's like, why not hold on to that? Hey,
We lost you, Shinobi. Your mic is shitty.
liar. But, you know, like, why not automate that in the same way that you use accounts to segregate things? Just automate using seeds for some things. Like, if I have my cold storage and I make my Wasabi hot wallet seed, all I'm thinking is that one seed is Wasabi. If the Wasabi client breaks that down into a couple child seeds instead of accounts to segregate their shit, that makes zero difference to me in the back end. But if for any reason, like down the line, I want to take some subset of stuff in Wasabi and use it with something else, like, bam, spit that out. Word seed universally, like, works with everything. But that's irrelevant to me unless I need to do that. It's just something happening under the hood. And it's all nested under a single backup.
I guess what that can, because like the current state is that most applications use like account zero, right? So I guess what that can do is the change could be going to like the account zero of that new seed. And then in the scenario, I think that nothing much was talking about, you can then take that, like it's kind of separate now from the main seed, so you can, yeah, you have a more clear separation, as Shinobi was saying, between like the UTX, like the change and the other coins that you have. I don't know if that made any sense, but
No, it did.
For the record, this is like object capabilities, you know, the way of doing that. Like, a seed is a capability to generate like a deterministic wallet, and if you know how to do that in a sort of factory way, I mean, that wallet, the master seed is not going to be discoverable to normal wallets, but you're basically like, if your privacy wallet is doing that specifically to avoid accidental spending, that actually kind of makes sense. And then for every individual sub account where you can segregate funds, I mean, you have a policy where like first you can generate it as a hot wallet, and then like all you can really do is share it with other wallets. But if you generate it externally with a hardware wallet, then it has an additional phase before it gets exposed like that, where it's potentially usable for cold storage. And yeah, it's like having that separation. Tahoe LAFS kind of works in a similar like approach where I mean, it's for storage, but like your like secret data is basically both the name and the ability to decrypt some piece of data. But there are additional attenuated capabilities underneath that where, so for example, you can store to a storage grid and you can delegate a verification role where somebody can, or I mean, you on a backend server, like can run something that only knows how to identify your blocks and make sure that there's like, if some storage servers go down, then like the data is re-replicated. It uses like erasure coding to make sure that there's enough redundancy. So the verifier who can like heal the storage on the grids, like the storage grids don't know anything about the clients, they just know that they're storing data. The verifier can make sure that the data is still accessible in case you need to go online later. And the way it's structured with the cryptography is just really nicely models these different levels of access that you might want to allow for different kinds of users. And BIP-39 seed words are capabilities to generate a wallet, and BIP-32 is describes a capability system, especially when you use the hardened generation. Like you can segregate at that level as well. Like nobody mentioned that yet, but that gives you something analogous to how like BIP-85 can segregate different wallets, because you cannot export an XPub of a hardened key, like so something above that. Like you can't really. I mean, hashes, in order to obtain the chain code, it hashes the private key material. That's what a hardened derivation is. So, like that that thing is not available to like other like when you have a different wallet, it knows nothing about the hierarchy above it. Whereas if you're using non-hardened derivation, like the linkage between the master BIP-32 key and the account key is overt. Sorry, that was a really roundabout way of saying that.
BIP-85.
Object capabilities.
For realsies though, like it's like I just this should eat account functions, and I don't see why, because it's the same exact abstract kind of indexing, and it's just so much better portability and segregation. It's like, why not? All you get is winning.
No, it's a trade-off.
Why
and
is it all winning?
It's a trade-off that's already partly available with output descriptors. That was exactly what I was rambling about now with hardened derivation. Like that gets you almost the same segregation semantics as BIP-85, just it requires wallets to be able to be configured in that way. Only output descriptor wallets can be, as far as I know.
Project idea for anyone out there listening or anyone in here. Like a key generation, like seed generation program where you can set up these child paths, whether it's BIP-85 or pop out output descriptors. Just having like these like control panels where you're able to like change permissions and generate keys and stuff like that. Like generate accounts and manage accounts for like some SaaS products. Yeah, having something like that for to manage all your BIP-85 keys, seeds.
All right, how about some lighter topic? Since Cooks, you are the last guest still here, then I'm going to ask you a question. So, what are you thinking about at night when you can't sleep? What kind of problems keeps you awake?
My kind of problems. I don't know. I'm like, my biggest problem is how can I convince Nicholas to merge my pull request? I think that's the closest problem I think about.
Have you tried a whip?
Wrong continent.
You can take care of his child for a few hours, but again, wrong continent.
Yeah, maybe I can hire a nanny and send it remotely with like a special note. It's like merge pull request 1577 or something. Although that might be kind of kidnapping or something. It might look kind of weird.
Or get a long-range drone with a whip.
Okay, I have to point out, Nicholas, if you're listening to this at some point, I'm not trying to hurt you. That's Max. He's trying to condone violence on you. And you should merge my pull requests.
We need a mafia-style organization for maintainers.
But on a serious note, the plugin system is almost a result of me coding a bit too much for BTC Pay, and about everybody staying sane with not having to review too much codes that needs to be perfect for everybody to use. In terms of, like, from my end, I build a lot of experimental features that don't necessarily need to be merged, but something to play with. So the plugin system is kind of a result of that thinking. It's like, I want to build a small tool that helps somebody with, I don't know, exporting their UTXOs and importing them into their Bitcoin Core wallet or something like that. And it takes a day to do, and then a month to get it merged from tests, reviews by people, and all that stuff. So if it's just something I want to play with, that's something possible at that point. And also all these integrations as well. Like, I really wanted to do some integration with Wasabi, but over a year ago, maybe even longer. But it's not that easy to do. It takes forever to. First, you have to set up a Docker repo, a Docker container with Wasabi in it, make sure the tests work around it, APIs, integration, security, blah, blah, blah. So, and obviously we can't just embed Wasabi inside BTC Pay. That would be like directly into the main code base. That would be kind of a leap in terms of feature scope creep. So, yeah, plugin system. That's my biggest mindset right now. That's what I wake up screaming at myself about right now.
Yeah, but I have like 1,001 feature requests that I want to solve with plugins. So I'm very happy for it.
Yeah. Like if you had to ask Pav about which features he wants merged, with regards to the plugins, it's the feature of removing features, which is a very valid use case as well. We have so many features in there. like all the apps would be so awesome if we could just, for example, move the point of sale into a plugin, the crowdfunding into a plugin. Then other people can, if those things are plugins, that means people can build similar features as plugins, right? So, what were they asking for? Like the other day, there's somebody asking for a lottery plugin. Before that, there was an auction plugin. All that stuff is kind of similar in nature.
I'm gonna get screamed at by half the people listening to this probably, but I highly recommend you consider like government monopolies and regulations around lotteries.
Nah.
They will get really pissed if you start taking away their poor people tax income.
Well, I mean, it would be a plugin, right? So the main code base would not have it. Somebody has to install it themselves. So technically, it's not even part of BTC Pay. It's maybe, maybe some guy called MrKukks comes along and just creates the plugin and publishes it, right?
Exactly. We're gonna make so many things obsolete. Holy fuck.
Yeah, I think we like to joke as well that we're trying to make ourselves obsolete. It would be pretty nice that people don't rely on us for everything. So,
want to hear a funny story real quick? So I went to the liquor store the other day and the clerk brought up Bitcoin because I had a Bitcoin shirt on. And then this really old dude at the counter playing the lottery thought that we were talking about some new lottery game.
he's probably the guy asking for the feature then.
Isn't that what this is? Oh shit, I forgot.
Oh man.
A lottery where you can only win. It's the best type of lottery.
Scratch off your 12 words.
I had this guy buy me a lottery ticket once that lost. It was very unpleasant. Very unpleasant.
If the third word matches up, you're like, oh, I won.
Maybe we're all just on a lottery hunt to get the same wallet as Satoshi had.
It's kind of true, right? I mean, technically, we're all trying to get some wallet that already has some UTXOs in it.
Maybe odds be ever in your favor, but they're not. Bane of strong encryption. Shit.
That would be one of those lotteries where you won but then lost because everybody would start panicking and selling Bitcoin.
So true.
But like, it is possible to generate a seed that somebody else had. So if the cryptography doesn't change at all for some period of time, then eventually that would happen, right? Like probabilistically, right?
Yeah, unlikely, I think, actually. I think the sun will burn out before that.
Yeah, way before.
No, I don't know too much about that. I'm trusting the cryptographers.
So the number of private keys, I think that the number of public keys is significantly smaller than the number of possible private keys. But both are on the order of the number of elementary particles in the universe, and the time to enumerate them is on the order of the, I don't know, black hole epoch or something like that. So there's not enough universe to compute a brute force search on that kind of thing.
Unless you have some defect in all our random number generators, right?
Yeah, but that's an entirely different thing. And here, I mean, there's good reason to believe that we know how to gather entropy and how to make it uniform and therefore generate, sufficiently close to random private keys. That's more or less a solved problem. I mean, in the case that it isn't, often like those have been stolen anyway. Like the Brain Wallet searches, there's bots that actively steal any funds that are deposited to like a Brain Wallet that's an easy to guess password.
Oh yeah, that happened 10 years ago. That was the website that would generate the wallets and stuff, and that you'd be able to like type a like some seed or something. Stuff like that, right?
Also, the blockchain info wallet, I think, at some point generated duplicate seeds.
Oh yeah, the entropy bug.
That's awesome. Holy shit! How can that even happen?
They were calling an external entropy source, if I remember correctly, but didn't include a error catch for like error messages, so they were reusing the error message as the entropy, I think.
But what happened is it's way worse than that. They were querying random.org for random numbers.
Oh man! Oh man! You're shitting me.
When random
HTTP.
When random.org finally made HTTP a forced redirect to HTTPS, they just typed the 301 or 34, I don't remember, redirect into like that was the entropy.
Yes, that's you said that. Oh, Shinobi said that was just using a random source of entropy, but
No, it was using an external source, like a website.
An external source. Yes, to me,
//random.org. That's what it was using.
Yes, exactly. That's not an external source of entropy. That is a backdoor, right? It's clearly a backdoor.
That's so fucked up, though. It's like you go to a random.org website, some 14-year-old kid that coded in PHP like 10 years ago, most likely, and returns what, like 10, the number 10 or something, or what?
No, you hash the HTML that contains the 10, and then
you. Oh man.
For what it's worth, they also took the local hardware and the number generator to get a source of entropy, and then XORed both sources of entropy. And that's why random.org was used, kind of because it was just another source of randomness to use, and that's just a math benefit.
Yeah.
And it actually did help, because if I remember correctly, the hardware wallet generator had a bug as well. So this one returned an error code as well and did not get caught. And that bug was even pre-existing. And then for a long time, only random.org was called until that also shut down. So actually the redundancy prevented the error from happening sooner, but because nobody checked the code, I guess it still happened.
Listen, I don't know about you guys, but I only generate my seeds. And I'm going to say it here, right here live. I only generate my seeds with dice. And somehow I always roll a 6. I don't know, but I guess I'm just lucky. I should be gambling, but.
Is that a floating accident?
Yeah, you should test your dice, man.
I don't know. Maybe I should go to a casino. Always rolling a 6.
There was a demonstration of some of those bad dice where if you roll them in water, they always roll to the same number because of the bad weight distribution on them or something.
Water and salt.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, this is basically like generating your recovery words is basically a religious, spiritual experience. And you know, you can get higher insights from the gospels of the recovery words that are being laid out at random. It's like throwing bones of rooms.
Yeah, let's go to the Amazon Valley and generate random entropy with mantra circle. I don't know. I'm pretty
So
sure.
random topic change. How has no developer anywhere ever talked about this delegated signature shit that you can do with sig hash none that Jeremy Rubin posted to the mailing list? Like, why the hell has no developer ever just been like, oh, hey guys, we can do graftroot without graftroot? Like, what the hell?
Wait, give me a TLDR. What happened?
So you can take my UTXOA and your UTXOB, and I can take both of these, sign them with sig hash none, so it only commits to the inputs and no outputs. Then you can make whatever the hell outputs you want, sign your signature on them, and I can delegate control of my coins to you. And I can take it back by spending my UTXO. You can relinquish it by spending your UTXO. But you can effectively do the same type of coin delegation that Graftroot allows without Graftroot. Developers have known about this for years, and nobody's fucking talked about it. Like, you could do so much inheritance or, like, you know, escrow type functionality with that. It's insane.
Yeah, that's actually true. So you just build a pre-signed transaction, sig hash none? Or does it have to be in the script?
No, just sig hash none, so that my signature commits to your input and my input, but leaves the outputs for you to define. And like, depending on what you do with output B, you could make that multisig. You can distribute that however you want, do some escrow, inheritance shit however you want. You can time lock the pre-signed transaction so that you have the window to back out of it or someone relinquish it. Like, it's like, how the hell have developers not talked about this, and why is nothing being built with this? Like, so much inheritance headache shit could be solved with this.
Yeah. Well, in hindsight, it's obvious. How does that work with Taproot?
Well, you could just bury like whatever conditions under Taproot for your UTXOB instead of like just having them out in the open or doing a pay to script hash thing and revealing all of them later.
And you could actually write different pre-signed transactions from different Taproot spending conditions or spending branches.
Yep.
Oh, that can get really complex. Oh, that's cool. Yeah, why do we need
different
graph
time locks? So like, your brother gets this first, and then if something happened to him, your sister can get it, and your mom. Like, you can do whatever the hell you want with that.
And it's all off chain.
So what I was saying earlier about like having 3 layers of like wallet functionality, this is policy, right? Like, I would want my wallets, everything to always have like a Taproot backup condition that supports that in principle. Taproot makes that economical. Like, you no longer have to literally put a P2SH like redeem script that can handle that. So like, why wouldn't that be supported in like composable wallets in the future? That's an entirely orthogonal layer of decision making from what do I want to do with those funds.
Yep.
Hey, Shinobi, who did that? Jeremy Rubin or Ruben Thompson?
He was the one who posted it to the mailing list, Jeremy Rubin. But it, like, the way he put it is like, this is something we've known we can do for forever, and I just figured, like, hey, like, learn about it, people.
The problem is, like, any side can unilaterally like abort this, so it doesn't really give much assurance.
But you can play games with that by making UTXOA multi-sig or more complicated, etc., etc., etc.
Yeah, Taproot makes it a lot more actually useful.
But you know, I actually kind of like in most of the cases I'm thinking about applying that, the fact that A can revoke it unilaterally at any time and B can bow out of it unilaterally at any time. You know what I mean? Like you're able to delegate that, but either side is able to like sever that relationship unilaterally at any time.
Yep, and I mean it makes a whole lot of sense for like, for example, you could imagine a large organization managing like a hierarchy of wallets or something like that. So the hot wallets would, in the event of a catastrophic loss, like all of their outputs would become spendable like a month later by some master key that's always in cold storage or policies like that. I'm just struggling to think of other use cases.
Well, like my head immediately just went straight to inheritance. Like, you know, people
What I'm
who
describing
want to,
is like basically inheritance just over a hierarchy, right? Like you can
yeah,
make
but
that as complex an inheritance scheme as you want and as dynamic as you want.
yeah, but you know, I'm specifically thinking, you know, like personal inheritance stuff. Like that's one of the biggest problems in this space is people buying and holding Bitcoin for the long term. Like, how do I guarantee that can be recovered in a way that isn't unilaterally just handing over control? Bam, right here. Anyone you want to be able to claim that, you create a a setup like this with whatever UTXOs you want them to claim and their key or UTXOB. And you could even make those UTXOBs yourself, just making dust outputs, because who cares? It's just an unlocking mechanism. And then pre-sign that for however long you want to. Like that that just solves that problem so much. And especially the fact that it's all just pre-signed transaction based. Like you can make one of those for any family member you trust or want to have involvement or access with that, with appropriate decrementing time locks. You can even make different multi-sig arrangements between different members of the family. And it's just like the fact that this has been possible pretty much since the beginning of time, based with what it works on. Like that's just crazy to me that nobody has talked about this and nobody has like put this to use in those types of situations. Like that's the immediate no-brainer, solves a lot of users' worries and problems.
Yeah, seriously. Like, this enables so many vault constructions. I mean, Graftroot does in general as a concept, but this is basically the concept of Graftroot. So this will make vault construction so much more easy.
Mm-hmm. Like I can almost see in my head now Gmax just sitting here obsessing over this idea, and that's slowly evolving into Graftroot now. Anyway, yeah, that's what Shinobi's been obsessing about for the last day or so.
Hey, Adam, if you still want to do an inheritance software, that just got a lot more easy. A lot more easy.
Especially if I would have paid attention.
Dick.
That's why it's live and recorded.
It's on the record, right? It's live streamed, so nothing is lost.
Yep.
Except my lack of offense.
All right, guys. Then I'm calling this meeting for myself. If you would like to stay around, chit chat, Rafa, the live stream is on you. So This was a really interesting conversation. Thank you for everyone for coming. Bye bye.
What do you mean, Adam? You bow out after 4
Bye.
hours? So quick already? It was a pleasure talking to you again. Thanks for coming on.
Tools.
Yeah, maybe I should end the live stream already. Now it's 4 hours. Or what do you guys think?
Do we have
Yes,
more
then
interesting
we
shit
can
to
talk
talk about?
about how to kill Bitcoin. Oops, did I say that out loud?
Yeah, okay, we have to cut it. But yeah. Yeah, I'll stop the streaming.